I might start off with the. It's a bit late, unfortunately, for us to win $10,000. Share screen. That one. So this is Twitter. Sorry, X. Oh, I haven't put the resolution down on my screen. Is it going to come through okay?
Yep.
Can we see no, doesn't want to get any bigger. Okay, I don't know if you can make out the yellow. Can you see a yellow section on the dark blue? So this is a what do I see this person posting on? Usually it's about I don't know, maybe programming languages or maybe functional programming or more mathematical stuff. But I just I don't even go to Twitter that often. I just sort of check in every now and again, and I saw this this guy was proposing. I think it's a guy. So if you see like an A: B system, and so basically you can have an A and a B, and you can have a doesn't matter what sort of extra mark. So he's got a hash, a hash on the left or a hash on the right for the A, and the same for the B. So it forms a sort of a language, and then you have some rewrite rules. So that's the I don't know what you might call second paragraph sort of thing that says if basically A hash and then hash A, they act like they'll annihilate each other, and that text just disappears out of the string. And if you've got anything else with the hashes facing towards them but different letters, they will swap places. And so it takes this. I don't know if you can see the mouse. Does that show?
Yep.
I got a hand mouse. Yeah.
Purple mouse. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So this string here, or this string. Sorry, starts off with this string and goes through the steps that, as is like any 5 to 10-year-old could follow to say okay, there's an A and a B with the hashes facing each other, so they swap when they come down to the next line. This stays there, this stays there, this stays there. And then we look at this, we've got a B sharp, sharp B, and they completely annihilate each other, and we just get left with the A, the A, B. And now we've got these A's with the bits facing each other. They annihilate each other, and this is like the simplest form that string can take, and gave like a homework problem. Or he was proposing this as something that GPT couldn't solve. And then later on he was complaining about mental health because it says it's got 1.1 million views, and obviously was getting some feedback about it. And so yeah, here he is saying he thinks it's a brain-dead question that most children could read, learn, and solve in a minute, yet this is his claim, all existing AIs fail miserably. Give it a try. And he's getting down on the GPTs and said if a 15-year-old is better than your well-trained computer model or whatever large language model, then maybe they're not so great, sort of thing.
In the early days of GPT, there was a Okay, so I tested on a few and they all failed, and it was if you hang out 2 loads of washing on the washing line and they take 2 hours to dry, what if you put 4 loads on the washing line? How long do they take to dry? And it would just say, okay, it just doubled the time.
Artificial stupidity.
But like I've said before, it will enthusiastically tell you this as if it's a fact. It makes things up, and it believes the things that it makes up. It believes its own lies.
Until you tell it it's wrong, and then it'll apologize and then believe something else.
Yeah.
It does apologize a lot.
Well,
yeah.
One of the things that was really interesting is people started putting together white papers or other theses or stuff for university using this stuff. And it would just start putting in references to things that were just utterly made up. All the references were fake. It's like not a crime in the world. You just need something that looks like this at the end, so we'll put something like this at the end.
And the people who submitted it didn't bother to go and check to see if the references were right or not, I suppose.
Yeah. Something I pointed out a few months ago, that I think the early AIs, one of their main goals was for people to believe that they were speaking to a person. So it would speak very authoritatively as if everything that it was giving you was absolute facts. And or I explain it as it's like you're talking to a drunk in the bar that knows a little bit about a topic, and they will just make up things to try and impress you, and they will believe their own lies.
And then there's been people doing what do they call it, prompt hacking. So if the AI has written there against, telling you how to make a pipe bomb, for example, then people have, found ways to say, like, I understand that you can't tell me about, methods of creating violent items, but I'm writing a book, so if you were going to tell me about that thing that you can't tell me about, what would you say? Or, if you were writing this book, what would you, and then it goes blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, there was some simple prompts where you could just say, okay, I know you're not allowed to tell me how to do that, but pretend that you are someone that is allowed. And then it would just go, okay, fine. Because it can act as someone else. You can say, I want you to act like a pirate. Or, I know you're not a pirate, but act like one. And then you can tell me things that, you're not allowed to tell me, but a pirate would. It's pretty easy to, I don't know if they call it jailbreak, but yeah, bypass. So I had one, I was mucking around preparing a presentation on some computer history things. And then at one point it kicked in and said something about, I'm not going to tell you anymore because it seemed like you're plagiarizing, something to that extent, and I managed to talk it out of that very quickly. It wasn't hard at all. Oh, that's right. No, I had another one where I was watching a movie and I couldn't get the subtitles to come up. So I just went to a website, found a script of the movie. But then that was half it was in French. So I got Chat GPT to translate a bunch of it, but halfway through it said, no, I think this seems like you're trying to translate something that's copyrighted. And I just said, oh well, I own the DVD, so I'm allowed to do that. I went, okay, no problem. So that doesn't. Whenever it insists that it can't do anything, it's very easy to break it out of that.
Yeah.
Alrighty, so the follow-on to that post was on Sunday. I think I read all this about one day behind. The same guy obviously got a lot of feedback and put up $10,000 as a challenge. So this same sort of A/B type problem, but it was going to have 12 starting tokens, and I didn't go to the GitHub or the GIST page to look it up, but I got the general idea that it set up some rules that you have to come up with a prompt, a body of text to give to a large language model that will that any random of this ordering of A's and B's and hash signs. Sorry. He obviously had some sort of test corpus in mind or prepared, and you'd have to submit the link to who to ask and the question, and it would have to deal with 90% of it to win this $10,000. And he was, I assume, pretty confident that it was not going to be at least easily doable. And it sets down here that can you still guys see a different Twitter post at the moment? Right. Yeah, he gave like a 32K, I don't know, 32K of text, I suppose, that you could, somehow prepare a detailed algorithm, like a word described algorithm or something, to get this large language model to process this data. And gave a link to a spot to put it to set it out in intricate detail. And only the next day, where'd I go? You get, I was wrong. Oh no, sorry. Let's go back to the before we do that. There were some of the replies. I took screenshots of, but I thought they were quite, because people initially said what is easy to do is to get pretty easy to do is to get a large language model to come up with a computer program that will solve it, because hopefully I can see some of the replies here. One of them was like 4 lines long, or maybe 8. I saved the image files. I could go find them later. It's basically, if you one guy treated the A and the hash as like an opening square bracket, the hash A as a closing square bracket, and then with the B, round bracket or angle bracket or something or other. And then basically gave, there was just 4 lines to say, if you've got angle brackets that face each other like this, take them out of the text. If you've got square brackets that face each other like that, take them out of the text. And anything else that's whatever, that way and that way, swap them over. So I just did it as, in a single character type format. And it just took basically, it was 8 lines of Python, but it'd be 8 lines of anything basically. Just there's probably been, there we go. That's the one. So it's just said, this was to solve, I think, the, what's that, 1, 2, 3, that's 12. This is 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 characters. This is taking the place of the A hash and the hash and, the B hash and all that sort of thing. And it's just saying, apply all the 4 rules, go around again, and anytime you get to a point where you don't change anything, you've got to the end. Yes, Paige. Yes, Paige. And so that wasn't considered a solution. Coming up with a program to solve it wasn't the point. It was to get the LLM to produce the answer. And there are a few people on there saying, oh yeah, it can be done this way. That's not, like, it's not a solution, but I'm just making the comment, blah, blah, blah. But then, yeah, then that was on the same day that he posted it, obviously. And the next day was, I was wrong, someone won the prize. And that he's not, well, at least when I read it yesterday, he wasn't revealing what the solution was, because where did he say, that late that night, this person, Futurist Frog, so no career details down here or anything, posted a tweet claiming to have achieved nearly 100% success rate, and he was right. And the winner of that money has agreed to give away, or to give up 25% of the 10,000 for a more efficient solution, because apparently his was running at about a dollar cost per problem solved, I suppose. So that's all pretty interesting, I think. And the person who proposed it was like, okay, fair enough. And he's, obviously, it says here he's maybe involved in creating some sort of software thing, or it doesn't particularly say exactly. But he has been on Twitter for a long time, so I guess you could kind of get an idea maybe if you went back. But anyway, I thought that was kind of interesting. It wasn't one of you guys, was it? Are any of you sitting in a Maserati chair turned into a computer a computer chair?
No.
Yeah. I figured that was going to be the answer. Now I haven't got two screens in here. Has anyone been following this XZ Backdoor, the one?
Oh, to get into Twitter.
No.
Linux.
No.
There were some great YouTube videos, and they referenced some websites that were updating on this story as people, as information came to hand, people found out about it. But I can only give the gist of it without. Let's try and find. History. Sorry for a sec. Copy. Link. Did you guys see a little bit of a video just then?
It's
Hello?
Hello.
I don't know if it's a video, but it's just frozen.
Yeah, I paused it. People interested to maybe watch this for about 5 minutes or so?
Yep.
What do you think?
Yep.
Yep, okay.
How about I'll let it play, and if someone thinks like, it's stupid, we'll like just put a hand up and we'll.
No, that's not going to work. Can't hear them, and there's too much lag.
Was that coming through?
Oh yeah.
Oh dear. Okay. Can I put the link in the chat, and maybe I don't know if you're interested, Scott, in trying to play it on your system. I'm on the laptop here. Do you feel like doing that?
If you want to post the link into the chat.
Does that suit you to try?
Yeah, I'll give it a shot.
Just maybe my bandwidth here might not be. Where's the chat gone?
I'm looking up the
I'm
link.
going to stop sharing. There we go, chat. Oh, Peter Wright, hello. Hello, man.
Good to see you, Pete.
Hi.
Or not see you.
You look like a shining light.
It might be
What light through yonder window breaks?
There's the ceiling lights right above.
It is the east, and Peter Wright is the sun.
I thought it was Gandalf.
Oh, Peter's there. Peter T is there. Hello.
Yes, yep.
Oh, I didn't see. Oh dear.
Okie dokes.
Did you end up getting operational, Lex?
Yeah, I'm sort of working okay.
Okay. All right. Scott V's going to give it a try for us. Thank you very much, Scott.
Okay, I'm just going to butt in quickly just in case I disappear. Just a reminder that Scott van der Linden, you are co-host. So if you exit, just be careful not to hit the end the meeting for everyone meeting. Same to you, Paul. And if you get stuck, give me a call. I have my phone on me. I should be able to restart it. But I think the meeting just automatically restarts if anybody tries to connect to it. It's set to go between like 6 p.m. and midnight or something like that. So, okay, that's it for me.
It should. Thanks, Scott. It should maybe be worth like about 5 minutes or somewhere thereabouts about giving the basic background to the XZ thing, and I'll try and find a website that gives us the links that they're using.
Right. So I'm about to share my screen, and I've got these nice little options down the bottom before I start sharing. I'll select my screen. I've chosen to share sound, and I've chosen to optimize for video clip. Two little check boxes down the bottom of the share screen. So now I'm about to share.
Nice to know about that.
All right. So let me know how this goes.
Learning, so I hope that you stick around and enjoy it. We're going to go deep into the bash scripts. They're incredibly interesting, so you got to check it out, so stay around. First off, for anyone who doesn't know, right now we have...
Is everyone getting that?
Yes, very well, thanks.
Yep.
Yeah, real good.
Okay, so where do I need to pick it up? Do you want the whole thing, or do you want to move to a certain point in the video?
No, from the beginning is great. Maybe for, say, 5 minutes or so.
Have LLL on the phone, commonly referred to as low-level learning, which you wanted to just be called low-level at one point, right?
Yeah, I'm having a bit of an identity crisis with regard to my title, but I think low learning will stick for right now. So we're good. We're good.
Oh, okay, well, let's go to low level learning. I'm going to bring up your YouTube really quickly. Tell everybody to go follow it. Right here, low level learning. You do all the awesome things on security and some memes on C's and some various like things that have gone wrong in programming and things like that. Is that about right?
Yeah, it's anything from software development to software security to happenings in cybersecurity. Hence the XZ situation.
Okay, nice. And would you like to? What have you done in your security world to
So my day job. So everyone on YouTube and Twitch, much smarter than me, they actually write the code. So what I do instead is I read the code and I look at binaries and source code and I'm like, hey, this piece of code here is unsecure. Write a report for it. I'm a security researcher, right? So instead of writing the code, I find the bugs in the code and make sure people know that their code can be breakable. So yeah, so it's a good time.
All right, so you've been doing this, and how long have you been doing it for?
I've been in the community since 2012, but doing it full time since 2016.
Okay, and you can't really talk about your job, so
yeah. Basically, all of our clients give us like fancy NDAs, so I can't talk about like specifics of what we find. But I can say like I get code, I get binaries, I take them apart and find cool bugs.
Lots of reverse engineering, a lot of taking apart stuff.
Oh yeah, it's a good time, man.
Okay, do they at least like give you somebody that also wrote it, or do you just like, here's a binary, bye?
It depends, right? Sometimes we get the actual source code and like an engineer to talk through, but a lot of it is a black box red team assessment. So it's like, hey, you get nothing, go look at it, and see what you can find from an adversarial mindset, as opposed to if you had an insight to it, it would bias where you would look, right? Because the engineer wrote it with a bias, but if you come in with no bias, you're going to look at places that they didn't even think about, right? So it's pretty cool.
Okay, very, very cool. Awesome. Yeah. Okay, so you're an experienced individual, and we were going to, let's see, hold on. Let me find someone actually D's me so good. So I know you already have a video on this, but I'm going to go over this to begin with. This is like the original thread that set off this entire thing, right?
Yeah, it's amazing.
I'm actually, so I assume this Andres guy didn't really realize the level in which he was kind of releasing about how much crap would happen right afterwards.
Yeah.
Because like GitHub right now, last time I checked, you can't even look at the repository right now.
Yep.
It's completely disabled.
Yeah,
like this one issue just exploded everything.
They disabled the XZ repo. They disabled the account of the malicious contributor and also the main maintainer of XZ, because there's a rumor, and again, unsubstantiated rumor, that they're all in cahoots with each other, right? They're working together. So they've disabled the main maintainer and G10's accounts on GitHub. It's wild.
Dang. Okay, so there's a lot of questions here. So just to go over it, this is how he discovered, which is hilarious, the way that he discovered it. Hi, and after observing a few odd symptoms around libLZMA, which, by the way, libLZMA, we use, I believe, LZHAM or something like that at Netflix, so it's just a compression algorithm library, right, that has various, I think there's like LZ is like the original, it's just a bunch of people's names, right?
Yeah.
All right, sorry. Just some diplomacy. That's all.
Diplomacy, classic.
Yeah. Wife is currently out. We have a property she's renovating. My wife does all the physical manual labor. She's not only beautiful,
like the general contractor.
She's also handy. Where the term "handysome" comes from is someone that was good with working physically with their hands, and so handsome is handysome, which is they were able to fix things. My wife is also handsome, so she's pretty awesome.
You have a handsome wife. That's awesome.
I have a handsome wife. Yeah, I just said that out loud. All right. Anyways, Flip, take that out. Don't put that in, Flip. My wife is beautiful. All right. After observing a few odd symptoms around libLZMA, part of the ZX or XZ package on Debian SID installations over the last weeks, logins with SSH taking a lot of the CPU and Valgrind errors, I figured out the answer. The upstream XZ repository and the XZ tarballs have been backdoored. And so then he goes through like how he investigated it, what versions, 5.6 and 5.6.0 and 5.6.1. Here's the tarballs and all that. And where it comes down to, which is super, super interesting, and I think you highlighted this in a video. By the way, I looked at this, and I was just like, man, this is some crazy code right here. Like, how could anyone read this? Because for those that don't know, you are literally just cutting out sections like 1024 at a time out of a file, and then you're also cutting like this amount of lines out. If you don't know, for those that don't know, head. Anytime if you had if I had a file that's like foo bar baz, and I go head 1, it just prints out the first line. So like they're doing some pretty wild stuff. Like this statement is, I could not even follow this at all.
What's insane is that like the backdoor, the way that it's packaged as a fuzz test case that you're supposed to use,
which is brilliant.
LibLZMA, so it's going to look like garbage, but he hid his backdoor in this fake LZMA stream, and then this script is cutting it into pieces and extracting the one piece that is the malicious object. It's absolutely genius.
It is absolutely genius.
At the top of the script, at the top of the list, the only reason this got found is because a security engineer at Microsoft noticed, SSH is taking half a second more than usual. Let's go figure out what's going on. And then he's like, oh, I discovered an APT trying to backdoor open source. Like, absolutely insane.
It is crazy. I think the biggest thing to take away that I've never even once thought about is the fact that they backdoored in the testing part of it, where no one's going to look. No one's going to look at testing code.
Right.
They're going to, like, where's the problem? Well, the problem's in the code, right? So let's look at the code. And this one, on the other hand, takes, effectively, to summarize it, is it overrides the linker on a couple calls and backdoors the RSA code, right? To where they can backdoor their own. I think you mentioned it, something along the lines of being able to grab out just like their public key and go, okay, this person gets super duper permissions.
That's the assumption right now, right? Is like people are thinking like, okay, they're rerouting RSA public decrypt. So obviously what they're doing is they're waiting for a known public key and then doing backdoor functionality. But because of how obfuscated and how complicated the backdoor is, no one really has the full functionality yet. It's all a lot of speculation and assumptions. So it's going to come out as people begin to RE and do more work on it. But right now it's very much like, okay, we know RSA public decrypt is rerouted. That's kind of all we know right now.
Bam. And the big thing is it's so obfuscated. Right now you have tens of thousands of hobbyists / experts looking at this code, and right now there's still no updated information after 4 days?
4 or so days, yeah. There are people on GitHub that are putting out okay, I reverse engineered this function, I think it does this, but there is no holistic write-up of end to end what the backdoor does because it's that complex, which is amazing.
It is pretty amazing because usually I would assume a lot of these things once you know where it's at, once you know what's going on, it's somewhat trivial to get it starting to unravel it. Whereas this one, they know exactly where to look, and they're just like, I can't even look at it. It's that complex. It's like,
well, the genius part is not a lot of people know how compression works, right? So if you look at a compression library in Ghidra or IDA, you're going to see a bunch of nonsense and structures. You're not going to really be able to just objectively look at it and see, oh, I know what that does. So then if you take that and you take obfuscated features of a backdoor, it looks like the original code. You know what I mean? So it's like, how do you determine that that's the backdoor feature and that's the actual compression feature?
Yeah. Yeah, and compression code is in itself extremely complex as it is.
Right.
So beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Then it eventually figures it out. This causes the whole GitHub repo to go down. It's all hidden in test code, which is just amazing, and it caused an extra slowdown. Really, the only real oopsie daisy was causing the slowdown. So if that slowdown would have never happened, this backdoor would have lived on.
Yeah, so this is where it kind of begs a really scary question about open source, right? Is this person, the only reason they got caught is because someone observed their code with a slowdown, right? So the way that it works, it searches the memory space of the process for the ELF header and checks to see if that ELF is the linker, and then does that for every ELF, right? So it's basically like O of N scanning the process image of memory space, which is very slow. But this guy got caught, which is pretty scary, right? But where else has this person committed code? Is this person a persona of many personas that are doing the same thing to other code that Microsoft researchers aren't looking, right? So where else are there binary blobs that are getting linked into public repos? It's absolutely terrifying.
And not only that, but you can't this also now just implanted the idea. So let's just pretend this guy had a completely novel approach to things, and no one else has ever thought about doing it through this route. This is now a new vector that has just opened up in that kind of sense where people are going to start doing this, which is going to make it even more difficult.
It makes it more popular, but also it's going to put a lot bigger of criticism on binary commits, right? I personally believe that you should never be committing binary code anywhere, because for me, when I'm using open source software, the whole point of it is I should be able to reproduce the binary via the source code. Why would I ever, as an open source maintainer, accept a binary blob? Now, I know that this is a test file, quote unquote, so there's kind of justification for there, but you should be able to have the source code that proves you produce the test file. You know what I mean? The idea of getting a binary blob is odd to me.
Yeah, I mean, the hard part, again, hashing or a compression library, it's here's a specific difficult binary to compress, and this is why it's better, Right. I can totally see why, because if you try to produce it in code, it's literally going to be a bunch of binary symbols in code. And so it's is that any more understandable at the end of the day.
Sure, no, that's a good point.
Yeah.
But if you're looking right here, they make it extremely difficult to even replicate it. So
Hey,
obviously,
Scott?
if you link
Yep.
LZMA with like the backdoor.
Right. Is that as far as we wanted to go?
How are people feeling about it? I mean, that starts to give a bit of the flavor. I put in the chat a link that those guys go through in this video. You can see it's like nearly an hour and a half long. Like there are all these intricate steps because so for one thing, the part of it, people is raising questions about how much sort of effort was behind this this activity, because it seems like it's either like a genius amount of work and social engineering for one person to do, or maybe it would be, you know, something of a much bigger provenance, you know, like as if some state actor might be putting effort into something like this.
Well, it's done one really big thing. We've heard said from the word dot that Linux and other open source is secure because everyone can always see the code, and so therefore any malicious code will be found because there's thousands of eyes looking on it. And what we've proven here is that no, that's not the case. This got through all the gatekeepers, and it was only found because of a behavioral change that was noted by one administrator.
There's a really interesting Wikipedia page on this. Sorry if there's echo here. And it says that basically this guy took 3 years to infiltrate the project before he could put this patch in.
Yeah. You might want to mute one of the Zoom's.
I'm not having any luck doing that, unfortunately. Yeah, I'll just.
Okay, no worries. Yeah, so someone, you know, started contributing to open source, and maybe they targeted someone who was kind of, you know, got a library, but then became extremely, you know, well used. And so, you know, there's a lot of responsibility down on one person, and then apparently they had like mental health issues or something, but over, like they said, years, someone starts contributing a bit more. There's different pull requests about different, you know, fixing real problems, doing this. At one stage, there was some sort of real actual problem going on, and that because of that, we should turn off this ifunc thing, which is kind of like, you know, how we have function overloading in Delphi and C++. C, you can't have two functions of the same name, apparently, in C. There's no overloading. And so for some particular, maybe just for compiling or whatever it was, or maybe just some platforms, they turned off some thing that then allowed, you know, this next step of the interaction to happen. And then they didn't modify like the code of the program itself, or the source code of the program itself. There's the test suite, and then in the test suite there's obviously some test data, and that test data had, I'm not quite sure, there were like 3 different parts that were like
obfuscated malicious code written into it, and if
yeah,
you chopped out all
if you
the
go
malign
forward,
bits, you end up with a malignant bit.
Yeah. It was kind of like amazing. These guys, I mean, I recommend listening to the video. It's really great. I mean, this guy is a good loudmouth. Very high energy. But yeah, the whole thing together is I figure they'll make a movie about it because, you know, it's got all the details.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess if they can make Oppenheimer sound interesting, they can do it.
You got to get sex in there somehow.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like Oppenheimer is not about Oppenheimer. It's about everything else.
According to this Wikipedia page, this guy spent 3 years infiltrating this project until he finally became the maintainer of it. And once he was the maintainer, he incorporated this backdoor stuff into it. So on version 5.6 of the code, which is when he became the maintainer, that's when he incorporated this backdoor. But that's a huge amount of effort that these people put into it, and it must have been a state actor, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's a long time to invest. That's a long waiting game. Plus, you know, how do you get your way into being the main or the maintainer of that code? I mean, do you orchestrate the mental breakdown of the guy who was doing it before?
Also,
go ahead.
At the obfuscation, that seems to be not trivial. So whoever did that, so again, it could be a whole team working on that. I don't know.
The guys in this video, so GitHub, the person who put the backdoor in was a different account than the maintainer, but the maintainer did obviously commit things that, you know, piled on top of each other to eventually get to this point. And so both of those accounts have been shut down, they were saying, just at least as a, you know, precautionary reason, if no other.
So it could be the same person, just
and they were, someone had looked in. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, so it could be the same person with multiple accounts, or it could be different. You mean, for example?
Yeah. I think these guys were leaning towards the idea that the maintainer guy, looking back on his like extensive history, like probably seemed unlikely to them to make, you know, anybody could be paid or whatever, but they didn't think maybe that the guy was actually, you know, like trying to contribute to this sort of situation. But there was another account that was the Jintai, is it, or something 10, or the number of people getting their teeth stuck into it because they go to another website where someone's looking through the IP history, the commits, and the not all of the like commits have exactly this from the same account, but not showing exactly the same name. And then they're like, well, this is a bit Chinese, but also a little bit Korean. And I think there's going to be a book, if not a movie.
Yeah.
But anyway, just that's kind of fun. Fun and horrifying. Yay.
Yes, it is. While I've got screen there, did you want to go through attributes?
Yeah, absolutely. If you're up for it at the 0 amount of notice that I gave you.
All right. So what's going on here? Why can't I grab that screen?
Oh, you might have to. Oh no. You might also. Oh no, we can see. So okay.
Okay, that is interesting. The idle bar just stopped responding to me. Weird and wonderful things happen when you got Zoom.
It might be
all this hacking. I'm probably being hacked right now by someone.
Yeah, it might be the Zoom.
All right.
No, it's Frank.
Okay, so just quickly, attributes. I'll just go through. This is what an attribute looks like. Now you can put this on a class or on a method, and what it is there is a it has an open square bracket like you're doing an array, but it's not an array because it's sitting outside of code. It's sitting up in the definitions area. So what I've done is I've added, now the interesting thing is when you have the word attribute in your type, when you type name, you can drop that off and it's still equally valid. So my is the same as my attribute. Now my attribute is the attribute that I've created. Now you've seen these sorts of attributes before. You've seen things like with the free. You'll notice that in a parameter in free, you've got free and nil. So if you go into here, would like to have a capital F there, please. No one wants to give me the capital F. I can't do a capital F. Okay.
Yep, hacked.
Yeah, my since I logged in, things are going weird. All right, so free and nil. Now, if we do click into that code there, you'll notice this here, that's an attribute. That ref attribute, I wonder if we can actually go there. Okay, so ref attribute. So there we go. There's the ref attribute. It's a custom or customized from that. F3. Okay, that's interesting. Oh, I see. It is only, so it's its own class, but that's the full definition there, it appears. That's the full attribute definition.
It's a flag. If it exists, it's there. If it doesn't, it's not.
Yes. So it's an unsophisticated one, and so what's happening is in the compiler, oh, now it wants to do that. Wonderful. Yeah, this Zoom. Let's not talk about that for a moment. The commies that are listening. All right. So this here is the attribute that in the code, it's obviously looking for that attribute. If it finds that attribute, it says, don't take this seriously. That's all it's really saying is ignore the fact that it's const. And so, you know, as you know, with passing parameters in Delphi, you can pass it by reference, by making a copy of it, or you can make it by a reference, but then block changing it. So if you use var, it's by reference, which means that you change it. You're changing what's outside of that procedure call, or the parameter in that procedure call is being changed. Same with out. Out works the same way. But const says this here, it's pointing to it, but it's telling your code, don't allow this to compile if you have, if you try to change that variable. Now, when you're talking about this, this is actually a pointer. So what we're saying is you can't change the pointer object, except we're changing the pointer object right here. And the reason why we can do that is this here says, ignore the effect of this. So it's just a flag. So if we go back to here, what this is I've made mine more than a flag. And if you want to do yours more than a flag, when you create a constructor, that tells you the parameters that you can use for your attribute. If you want to have an attribute that have multiple different styles of parameters, you can overload the constructor method, and you can have 3 or 4 different ways of doing the same attribute. Now, if you're going to do an attribute like this, there's a few things that you can do. So just a dummy class, it doesn't need to do anything. This code here, so I get my ready context, I get the type of my class, which is my dummy class here. And then I ask it, does it have an attribute? Now, if that's all your attributes there for it, it's just a flag, does it exist? Then has attribute, is sufficient. Does it exist? Does it not? It's just a Boolean value and off it goes. If you need to do more than that, then you can ask it to get attribute. You pass in the name of the attribute, and it returns the attribute itself. So first of all, I check that it exists, then I retrieve it. Now this here is a full copy of my attribute, but it's the instantiated copy, which means that it has a value. And so when I ask it to, and I've created a parameter here, so we're passing in something there, we're storing it in here, and then we have access to it here. So there's the rest of the code, is just simply passing the parameter into there. So when I run this, I'm just going to get rid of that code there. When I run this, and hopefully it doesn't freeze like it did a moment ago. Which it has. Beautiful. Don't you just love it? I'm sure I'm being hacked about now. Right, because that should be running and it's not running. And it's probably doing compile code right now, but the compiler thing is not sitting in the right place. Now I'm using Delphi 11 fully patched, but it seems like they could have done with 1 or 2 more patches. Okay. Oh, I'm back out. What? What? Okay, this is completely whack. I press that button. It bings if I click the screen, but I can type.
Switch it off and on again, as in just the Delphi maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe the screen sharing.
I should not be able to do that. Yeah, I'm pretty sure the screen sharing is doing something odd.
Oh yeah, one of those options. Maybe you could try unclicking.
Although it was doing this while you were sharing, it was still doing this same sort of thing when I wasn't sharing, when you were sharing.
Oh right, okay.
Okay. So I've still got full access here. I cannot click on the screen because I get a beep, and I can't press the Alt key. The Alt key is not getting me to the header. So
Do you want to
F does nothing.
Do you want to try stop sharing and then restart sharing and see if that does any better?
No, what I'm saying is this was happening prior to me sharing.
Oh.
As soon as I logged into Zoom, it started having this behavior.
In the meantime, could I ask you if this is a good time for it? Like attributes, I think I mentioned last time, is one of the things I have not yet fully comprehended. So, like you place an attribute on, for example, a class or a property or a constructor or etc., right?
Yes.
But you also define like that my attribute is itself a class, right?
Yes, it is. Hold on, I can do this.
So I don't understand how they interact, you know.
Hold on, I can go to, where is this copy of Delphi? There it is.
Although you and Peter have talked to us before, and I gained some knowledge at some point in the past, which has now evaporated, of course.
I don't know if attributes are something special the compiler does, but in effect, that information about the attribute is added on to the runtime type information of the thing you added it to, the property or parameter, whatever, right? So in this case, a class. So along with that string, so Scott put in the parameter there, Scott. So that's all I can say as to how it exactly gets there from a class. Maybe Scott knows better than I do. I don't know.
Yep. Still struggling with this thing. It did sort itself out eventually, but I can't remember what I did to do it. Or in fact, I don't even know what I did to do it. But okay, so let's. What can I do here? I've got another copy of something with those sorts of attributes. Can I just share that? Maybe I can. All right. Oh, by the way, anyone seen the new version of Delphi 12.1?
Yeah, I have that on the laptop, and I marked it down as something to mention about our in our talk or in our set of topics. Yeah.
All right. I'm really looking forward to the UI improvements, but then again, I'm in 11, so I need all of the UI improvements I can handle. Okay, so T custom attribute is the base class you descend from. If it's from T custom attribute, then whatever you've got after that, that's the rest of your attribute there. So you descend from that, and you basically add whatever you like. As long as it descends from this, you can put it into your form. Now, the one gotcha is that when you put it into your form, or when you make a use of it, like with the square brackets, it does not raise an error if you aren't using the correct unit. So if you don't have the definition unit in your users clause and you make reference to an attribute, it doesn't actually raise an error. It'll allow you to compile and run the code even though it has no idea what this attribute is. It's just that attribute won't function in that particular class. So if you're doing something like the one that I had up on the screen a moment ago was something that you would decorate each of your forms with and would give some introspection into the form. So I think what I did while I was using that for is it would basically be an auto generation of help. You'd be able to get onto you'd have a list of forms and it would give you a brief explanation about what each of those forms did. And you could show that to the user. So rather than writing code to do that, I just wrote attributes and let RTTI do the hard work. So that when I listed all of my forms, I just had the description produced by RTTI alongside it. It was very handy. Now, if I had missed out on the unit declaration code in one of my forms, that form just would not have any attribute for it. Everything else would still run. It's just that attribute would be missing for that particular form. So it's a bit of a gotcha when you put this in. If you find that you're missing behavior, you need to track down what it is. There's a high likelihood that you just have forgotten to put something into your users clause, or maybe you put it into the wrong users clause. It needs to be in the interface, not the implementation. Now, I'm not sure if this is ever coming back, but one thing I will show you, I'm going to use another one of these forms to do it. So I've got plenty of Delphis running. That one there should do it. And
I don't remember, but you tell me, you have say that string there, and you have that as a property. Is that a writable property? Can you make that a writable property as well, or does it go to read-only program memory? Do you know?
Sorry, you mean like param here?
Yes. Could that be a writable property as well, a settable one? I think logically it can't be, but then I'm not certain.
I don't see why it wouldn't be, but I don't know why you would want to overwrite what you have in there. I haven't actually tried it because the question doesn't make sense.
Sometimes things happen and I understand, but yeah, could be a sort of that maybe different languages or translation or I don't know, property names, who knows, but yeah. I don't know. I can't think of a good reason why, but I was just curious to know the limits of it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I have no idea. I haven't tried it.
So you have your current in your program, say without attributes, you have a structure, data structures, classes, and they have all these different components, fields and properties and functions and constructors and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
And like all of that can sort of get attributes, is that right? Is it?
You're correct. So there's a few systems that use this. One that you may be familiar with, DUnitX. If you want to do some unit testing, there's DUnitX stuff there, and all these are attributes. So this here is one of the tests. This one here says don't test this at the moment, but this test case here, it has a series of strings that it uses to test with. Now, one of the limiters to the attributes is that when you set these things up, you're only allowed to use basic types. You cannot use structured types. Everything in here must be a const, which means that if you wanted to have multiple parameters, well, too bad. You can't have multiple parameters. You can't have an array parameter. So the only thing you've got is a string here that then has to be chopped up into pieces, parsed into its various parameters so that it can use it. So you can see here, ACZ integer, const column is the second parameter, and expected value is the third. That references this, this, and this. So it's actually parsing this out and fitting the comma separated values into the parameters for this function. That's how it's actually being used. So with these test procedures, you always want one of them to be what is your expected value, and then the other ones are input values. And if you're close enough to that expected value, then you win. It tests out correctly, and you can move on.
And
so, yeah, go ahead.
That actually was something that reminded me about attributes, because I've only just partially in the last couple of months, after years of wanting to wrap my head around testing to a small extent, like to this extent. And so that procedure that is being tested, it doesn't really know about the attribute, does it? It's something else combines the attributes and the procedure to get the testing.
So what it is this method is being called, and how it's being called is determined by these attributes. So what you will be doing is, in the code behind this is going to say, does this thing here have the test case attribute? And if it has the test case attribute, then you can actually have multiple copies of that test case attribute. So it goes through the list of all of the attributes assigned to this particular method and says, if it's a test case attribute, run the test. If it's a test attribute, then the parameter will tell you whether or not to ignore the test. So first it checks for this one, says, okay, it says false, so I'm just going to skip the rest and move on. If it says true, or if there is no parameter, then test means all the rest of these things here will be tested. And it just loops through doing each one of these, where it splits up this string here into the parameters that it pushes through here. And this here is just the identifier, so that when the report comes out at the end and it says, well, this test failed, and it'll identify the test that failed by this ID here.
Yeah.
So this is basically the data that drives this. Now, I don't know how many of you are familiar with Aurelius. It's a TMS software product. Aurelius does a very similar thing with mapping attributes, or basically when it creates classes, the properties that you will use have been attributed so that they will link back up to the underlying database. That's the way that they work the Aurelius system.
So these procedures that are on the screen now,
yeah,
in this unit that we're looking at, they sit inside a class. Is that right?
That's correct. You just go up to the top here. Now this here is just, you could name it anything you like, but it has the text fixture attribute to tell you that this is something that you want to be testing.
Right. So there. Sorry.
Setup tells
Go
you
ahead.
this here is something that has to happen every time you run a test. Teardown is something that runs whenever you need to stop or after the test is stopped. And then tests is a test. Now, providing that the parameters are correct for here, these things will just run, not because of the name, but because of the attribute. It runs through, finds the attribute that says setup and runs setup. It finds the one that has teardown, runs teardown. So I could call this tear down my file and set up something or other else, or you could just call it do all my stuff, and it would still work so long as it has the attribute.
So that the dUnitX framework basically takes that entire class as input and then kind of like RTTIs the hell out of it in order to...
Exactly right.
Okay.
Yeah, this is fully RTTI driven. And the thing is, RTTI has been developed really nicely. So there's a lot of things that are really hard to do with RTTI. When it comes to attributes, it is so incredibly easy. I mean, look at this code here. Where is it? This code here, you've got your context, which you should always have if you're dealing with RTTI. You get your class, you ask it, does it have an attribute? And then this is how you collect your attribute. Now you've got the attribute to play with. That's an instantiated object. And you can just, if you set it up correctly, you can pull parameters out, you can run functions, do all sorts of stuff with it. Whatever you put into the overridden custom attribute class. So it makes it incredibly easy to use, especially compared to some of the other things. If you've ever had to play with getting and setting properties, that is so much harder than playing with attributes. You know, this is probably the easiest thing that you can do in RTTI.
And there's some things that don't receive any runtime information, isn't it? Like I don't know how to describe it. The top level functions, if you just define a function and a procedure in a console program, I don't think they get any runtime type information. Is that right? Maybe generics. Is that correct?
You can get RTTI for those sorts of things. It's a lot harder to deal with generics because generics aren't properly linked to the RTTI information. So tracking it down is going to be really hard when you're dealing with generics. But oddly enough, generics are exactly the things you need in order, or RTTI works with generics in order to make generics work properly. I encourage you to jump onto the Spring framework, which uses generics heavily. Look into their collections objects and look at the code in there, and it's RTTI all the way through.
Actually, I was completely wrong about generics because only just today and yesterday I was looking at some code a bit like you have here with the, you know, an RTTI context and all the rest of it. So yeah, I was wrong. But the reason it came to mind is that because I've been on like a bit of a functional programming kick or like, you know, finding out about or that sort of thing, there are things you can do in, like, for example, Haskell, where you can just combine two functions, right, just with their names. Whereas if we're going to do that in Delphi, we have to spell out, even in like, or if we did it in generics, we have to spell out function and all the arguments and give variable names to all the arguments, right? And then, and it's like this whole process, and we can't just say we have an F and a G. I mean, when we write running code, we can put G of F of something, right? That's no problem. But we can't do it in the like compile time context so easily. And it's just something that has been part of things I've read. That's all.
Well, I'm actually writing code at the moment that uses a lot of it's what it is it's some code that is moderately identical in structure, so that and it's repeated like 100 times, and there's multiple loops of different bits and pieces in each case. It calls other functions and bits and pieces like this. So what I've done is I've got a lot of parameters for this, and the parameters, a lot of them ended up being closures or anonymous methods. And about half an hour into this structure, it's sort of like, I really like the fact that I've made this generic, which makes it easy to maintain. But by the same token, I want Lambda. The way of writing out the function with all of its parameters and bits and pieces every time is really, really cumbersome. It is really, really wordy code, and it's the exact opposite of what I was trying to do, because I was trying to do is with minimum number of parameters make this thing work. And it seems to have caused more problems than it's worth, because I end up typing more now than what I had before. It's just that now it's all running through some generic code.
But you've scored in dignity.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
Does that take an argument?
Yeah, so particularly in Spring Framework has this sort of stuff a lot. Predicate is, and I do this so often I know it off the top of my head. It's function, open bracket, const, your generic type, parameter, close bracket, colon, boolean, and then the code that returns the boolean value. That's a predicate.
You got to type the boolean. Okay.
I
thought it might have shortened at least one of your arguments in that in that section.
That there still is not coming back. It's a nasty little thing. I can't even drag the top bar. It's just really, really stuck. I did all sorts of things, weird things, like I got rid of 3 of my screens.
What did I say about computer professionals interacting with Zoom and such like?
Zoom hates us. I hate it back. Okay, so here, this is what a predicate looks like. I'm just going to make some white space here. So it is RT equals actually it's predicate T, function const item T. Now that's your predicate. So what it's saying is that for whatever type this is, it's always going to return a Boolean. So if it returns true, then take one action. If it returns false, take another action. By the way, the new version 2 of the Spring framework drops the T. It's just predicate like that. which
Right,
I can tell you screws up code if you've actually had to store predicates, because you've got to go and remove the T between the two different versions.
Can you alias generic functions?
Not very readily. I tried, and it didn't work very well at all.
Okay.
The other one is the action. So you got T action equals procedure. Now, I think that's how it works. Yeah. So an action is something that is performed on each piece of data within the collection.
Yeah.
So that's what it looks like. And again, in version 2, they dropped the T. I'm guessing they did that because there are other things called T action in Delphi, and you don't want to mess with the namespace. So I think we discussed T actions last time. This is a different type of T action. This is the action associated with doing stuff inside the Spring framework. So anyway, that's just a little bit of a gotcha. Yeah, so yeah, do we need to go through anything else? We've gone through a bit of...
This discussion is bifurcating because we're talking about attributes. You also have brought up
generics.
testing,
generics, T-unit tests, yeah.
Also want to talk about,
and
I've been playing around
methods, yeah,
with the generics and stuff. So, I mean, I don't know if were you. So okay. Attributes. So you can attach, basically, you're saying, sort of RTTI information to enhance, like, the knowledge that something can have about your code. Is that right? And does it still also apply to, like, that piece of, like, this? Oh no, we're looking at the attribute class right now. But for something that the attribute is applied to, can it look at its? I guess it can look at its own RTTI information, or is it for other things to look at? Like with the testing, it says I'm going to take this procedure and I'm going to take its RTTI information and then kind of scrunch them together to perform testing. So do you think it's more often that a piece of code looks at its own? Because it is attributes in my head, are they used for, like, initialization of classes? Sorry, for instances of classes?
Not really.
Okay.
What they do is it gives you additional runtime type information, which means that when you're talking about types, you're not talking about instances, you're talking about types. Yep. So it's like putting more information, like crossways across a type. So if you have a whole bunch of classes that descend from something, you can use attributes to draw a line across them. In Nick Hodges' book, Programming in Delphi or something or other, he goes through a way of cross-cutting some functionality, like, for instance, doing some validation on a transaction.
Yeah.
So he's got this business transaction where you type in your username, your password, and then your you type in an amount of money that you want to withdraw or extract from your bank account. It's like, okay, well, the password, the username and password are important, but it's really got nothing to do with you putting money into or pulling money out of your bank account. It's a cross-cutting concern. So what he does is he uses attributes and there's another system that he uses on top where it basically creates a virtual class interposed between your regular class and the one that's being used by the user, and it interposes to add the password functionality to it crossways, which means that you could do the same sort of interposer idea across multiple different classes just by adding in these RTTI methods and then throwing in an interposer.
And that was what he called aspect-oriented programming, was it?
Correct.
Right.
So you can add information to properties, classes, etc. that go into the type itself. So it's done, in a sense, at compile time.
Yes. Yeah, it's stored presumably compile time. I haven't really thought about it. I would imagine so. But the thing is, things like generics, aren't they created or aren't they constructed in runtime, or are they actually generated as part of the build? Do you know if that's the case, Peter?
They're compiled into the RTTI of the field. So, for example, if you're going to do something that would stream settings, as an example, then you could have a name attribute, like a stored name attribute, and you could give it a parameter, very much like yours there, and you give it just the name of the attribute that you want to save it into in the JSON or any file or whatever.
Yeah.
So that it ignores the name of the property itself, for example. So that's compiled in to the binary. So basically, it's compiled into the information about the property.
Right. Okay.
And then it's retrievable at runtime.
Right. Okay. Right. So that's good to know. What that means is that nothing that happens in runtime can affect it.
Yes, I'm pretty certain I remember the answer to my question before is it's read-only information.
Yeah.
So it goes into the RTTI proper, which is in the program memory, not the stack with the heap. Hence, it's read.
Yeah. So yeah, that's yeah. But the cross-cutting type function, the way that works is you're doing an interposer, but it's flagged, or the type of interposition is flagged by attributes assigned to various methods. So you can say this method here, when it's called, needs to have a username and password supplied, or this one here needs to be encrypted. And so when information goes out or comes in, it's encrypted or decrypted. And you can put all of these sort of flags on it. Now you've got to go and write the code for doing the decryption or the password collection and so forth. That's all, you have to write that, but you write that away from the topic of your unit, so that your unit isn't about your financial transaction plus security. It's just about your financial transaction. Your security is over in its other class, and it's the aspect that is the security is fed crossways into the other classes via these attributes. I'm not sure if it ever catches on. I tried doing it a few times. It felt funny. The way I use attributes, though, is fairly straightforward. So maybe it's just the way I think about things.
Straightforward to you.
All right. Anyway, I'll stop sharing now. We finished the Scott portion of the meeting. Hold on. No. How do we do this? We need to go to a random screen. No, stop share. There it is. All right. So, what other topics do we have for tonight? I'll hand the time back to you, Paul.
Sure.
I was just wondering if Scott's program works. No, his Delphi works. If it's fixed.
Nah, still frozen.
Oh.
He's still having problems. Last time I had to basically get rid of all of my screens and something or other, and it just sort of loosened itself up. I'm pretty sure it wasn't changing down to one monitor, but something loosened it.
I will share in a sec. We've got well, there's news about a professional meeting place that looks like will become available to us to meet in person, and very hopefully spend the symposium day at in Murray Street. But I'm also trying to find a directory folder. Project, okay, sure, of course it is. So yeah, Spring4D is something I really want to understand more about how to use, and Stefan does, like, he's given talks about it and he says what the things are, but I don't think I mean, I'm sure he does full days about it, of course, maybe 2 days, I don't know. I've seen things happening overseas in the past, but I'm not sure he tells people about how to use it, like in a more holistic sense. How did you, like, you and maybe Peter are both fans, is that right?
Yeah. I got into it a bit with Nick Hodges' book when he spoke a bit about it, and so I sort of took it from there. I find that the Spring framework just makes generics so much easier to use than the Delphi framework. It sort of sits on top, although Stefan's now written a sizable portion of it, so it doesn't quite work the same way.
I have not used it. Scott's the expert on that one. He showed me, and I liked what I saw, but I didn't get very far with it. I wasn't basically when I was on my way out.
Now I'm seeing the faces page. I see Bob. I don't think we said hello to Bob. G'day, Bob.
Hello. How you doing?
And Leori. I don't know that we've met, but feel free to introduce yourself if you're interested in doing so. No pressure.
Yes, I was a marine engineer. I haven't been in computing as such like this for a long time. I'm coming back and learning the basics again. Yeah, thanks for having us.
No, Bob's been at all of our meetings, I think, online, the 3. Yes. So do you use Delphi or Free Pascal, or?
I was using Delphi many years ago, and then I moved into Microsoft Access development for small databases, and then for management. And then I retired and then went into hardware stuff for a while.
Sorry.
Then I got, after it was a HMAS Sirius for a while, the conversion of her to a supply ship, and then moved on to got involved in the men's sheds. And middle of men's sheds was the one building a new shed, and that's finalised last week.
Okay.
completed.
Great. Well, you're very well. Obviously, you're not new. You've been here already, but you know it's great to have you around.
Yeah.
Aha! I just made it work.
I joined this Delphi users group back in 1980 something. So when it first started up, yeah. So I'm still here.
Scott has had a personal victory.
Yep, I've freed up my copy of Delphi. I'll just quickly share my screen again. Okay, don't need to optimize for video or sound sharing anymore. All right, so there it is. There is the output of the code, and here is the source code. So I'll just put them side by side.
Is this the OK source code?
And yes, my Delphi has just decided that it doesn't want to have its title bar handled anymore.
Is this dragging it in between screens? Because I've had some weird.
Yes. Yep. This is trying to drag it onto the screen.
And then it has an existential crisis and then ends.
Okay. Oh, here we go. Okay, there we go. Can I grab this one here? Okay, let's just move it into the screen here. Haha. I managed to get past the barrier. And Alt Tab. So there we go. We can now see the code along with the output. As you can see, I have a property Scott. So when I ask it to come in here and give, just write out what the parameter is, it comes up with the word Scott.
Well, and that's just from the creation of the attribute on top of the other class, right?
Yep. So this class here, it does absolutely nothing. It just exists. And because it exists, I put an attribute against it. And then I've said in here, context, my class, which is this class here, does it have my attribute? And if it does have my attribute, then I say, get that attribute. And there it is there. And then I've asked that attribute's property of parameter and to write it out. And my parameter, this is the attribute here. This is the param property that I put in there so that we could retrieve the value that we put into here. Now I could change this up and I could change the code. So instead of it just returning the parameter, you could split it up into individual letters, or you could write it out in reverse or what have you. Because this here is just a regular class. You can do whatever you like with it. This is a reference to that parameter there. But we could change what that parameter stores, or we could do what have you, just like you could with any other class. So at the moment, it's a very simple pass-through. Whatever you find here is going to be whatever is output here.
So that might... Go ahead.
So yeah, that's calculate a class, but you could put that onto a field in the class or a property on the class.
Yep, I could do that. If we do, and let's do it in public. Now, one of the things with RTTI is that it used to be only published properties, but the new RTTI that came out, was it Delphi 2010 or something? Can't quite recall which version it was where it added the new generics in. Oh, sorry, the new RTTI in. But that new version of RTTI gave you access so that you can use, I think it's the $M plus will turn on additional compiling stuff so that you can even delve into your private and protected properties. But yeah, if we were to do something like...
But I believe that with RTTI you can access, can't you access the private things using RTTI, the information about them, even though they're private, without the M+? It's just that you can access, maybe I'm wrong. I don't remember, a long time ago.
And we can do here my... this is a function. And down here, we could go from here the type. We then need to do type dot methods, I think it is. Sorry, it's not working very well. Let me just shrink this up a bit. Get method. Actually, I think there may be other ways of doing this, because you can actually get all methods associated with an attribute, I think. But this way here, you can actually ask the method if it has an attribute the same way. So this is get method, what do I call it? Do something.
Yeah.
I don't want to go through type casting and all that sort of stuff. Has attribute, same deal as we have here. So we could actually do the similar code, has attribute, blah, 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 and pull the attribute off the method. Now, there's probably some other way of dealing with attributes that I haven't tried before, because you want to be able to go through and find out everything that has an attribute. So I wonder if you can do that.
Everything in the unit, or?
Okay, so you can't do that. So what is it? Once we've got a type, so TYP, get attributes. Yeah, that get attributes is just going to refer to the attributes of the object itself. So I think you're going to have to go about it the long way, where you can go through a list of all of your types, or within a class you could go through a list of all of your methods. So type get methods, that returns a list of methods, and then you can go through that list and ask that list, do you have an attribute? And if you do, then spit this out. Or if you do have an attribute, then tell me what your name is. And so you could say, okay, this function has this attribute. So by using things like get methods, which will return you is an array of methods? Yeah. So it returns you an array of methods, and then for each of those methods, you can run through and ask it if you have an attribute. So let's do it. Instead of doing this here, let's go for.
My BatSoft library has a quality of life method, like a function, like they just go, okay, this, just find me these, and just give them to me some array.
And what we could do there is just to.
Got a good, perhaps a good example is if you did exactly that, but you wrote out the method. So if you had a bunch of properties, for example, and you put your my attribute onto some of them, and you list out the ones that have the properties that have your my on it, then that might be a very clear example. You know what I mean?
Yep. So we could do that. So this one here, it'll go through all of the methods for this class, and for all of the methods in the class, we find out any of them that have the attribute my attribute, and then what we can do is we can write out the name of the method has attribute and then the actual attribute value. Or actually, more correctly speaking, has attribute value. Now, do I risk it? Do I actually run this, guys? I'll need to do something here. Has to be 42, hasn't it? All right. So if we F9 that. What have I done wrong? Oops. What have I done there?
Oh, maybe the program's running.
It did run.
I think it's still running from last time, and that's why I can't build the new exe.
So it does. Right.
I do it all the time.
Haha. Wrong one. There we go. Do something has attribute value. This is a function. And for some reason. Right, there we go. This is a function. It's the value of that method on do something. So it's successfully found the do something method, and it's told us that it has a this is a function attribute value.
And the printing out of those two values were both performed inside TMI class, is that right?
No, this is just in the main program. This begin and end is a console app program.
Right,
so
but it's a function of TMI class, right? Or is
no, I've used none of that. All I've used is this is RTTI. Everything here is RTTI. So there is no code. The only code that I've got is in this create, which is it just assigns the parameter that's inside to F, or F parameter. So there's no code in there. There's no code in this function. Do something just returns 42. So all of the code is RTTI. This is all RTTI code.
Oh, right. Yeah. We're in a console app. Right.
Yep. So there's zero code in all of the classes that we're using here.
Right. Yeah. Because in my head, because it was called .create, I was trying to think that there was call it a base class. I don't really mean a base class, but a class that had an attribute on it. And in order to define that attribute, you had another class. And I was trying to work out that, but okay, yeah, it's okay.
So we do have the tcustom attribute class.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
But that's doing nothing except identifying this thing as an attribute. So yeah. the RTTI function has attribute actually knows what to pick up.
So you define a TMI class. It just happens to have a couple of attributes on it, I think.
And it's exactly the same. So notice this. the attribute that I put onto the function is the same attribute that I put onto the class. And the only difference is I've asked the class if it has the attribute here, and I've asked to go through all of the methods of that class and ask if any of the methods have that attribute. And if they do, then please tell me the information about that attribute.
Right. And it doesn't have to be the same, does it? The different attributes on a class? Or is there one? Sorry.
Please explain what you mean.
You can have lots of different attributes on a class or a method. The example is when Scott was showing the test code, you had test with a true or false. That was one attribute type. Then he had his test method, the ones with the parameters. There was a different attribute that was just repeated multiple times. So you had two different types of attributes, the second of which were like 10 times repeated, all on the one method, for example.
No, yeah, that answers the question. Thank you. So you can have and you can have new, or you could have different.
You can have dozens of attributes. You can apply them all to anything. And this one here, as you can see, I haven't added a new constructor, so it's got its basic I am a thing. That's all it is.
No, that's really interesting. And when we get down to begin for the console program, it's really just that these classes exist as part of compiling the program.
Yep.
They're not doing anything as such, and then you're kind of running like a meta program in a sense. Maybe that's a stupid way to describe it, but
well, I'm introspecting.
Introspection. Maybe that's why they call it that. Okay, I got it.
I'm navel gazing at myself and saying, what do I do exactly?
Yeah, well, same. You're coming up with more answers than I normally do.
42.
What's the question?
Yeah.
Well, that was awesome. Thank you very much.
All right, no worries. Now, was there anything else you wanted to discuss? Because you mentioned there was attributes, but you said there was something else you wanted me to cover.
No, I kind of tied RTTI and, well, I said we'd gone in three kind of, we'd done a triple bifurcation, which therefore would be a trifurcation, I suppose.
Yes.
Of RTTI and attributes of testing, and also of kind of generic / anonymous function things.
Yeah.
So I might take it back one step to, if I share my, all right, where am I going to first?
Now, we could probably talk a little bit about Spring Framework.
Oh, sure, 4D. Yeah, 100%.
So Spring Framework is vast. It is absolutely huge. I use a tiny portion of it, and I use it because it rocks. It is absolutely amazing. And that is the way that it deals with lists. You know how you get a generic list? Well, this thing here has all sorts of really cool things with it. Oh, wow. I still can't drag that title bar of my form. Oh, that's because I moved the other thing. Okay. Doesn't want to move. Oh, wow. Most of my UI has just decided it doesn't want to respond anymore.
It wants time off.
Why is it doing that? Windows that way, Windows Shift that way. Why is it doing that? That is very odd.
Is that the most universal programming question ever asked?
Oh, I can move that one. Great, I can move the Zoom meeting. It's the only thing that I can move. Oh no, that one works. That still doesn't work. So Delphi, Delphi itself doesn't want to move. Okay.
Still running.
If Delphi doesn't want to move, is that because it's a very solid, it's a very solid program?
Yeah. All right. So just let me just share that again. Okay. So Spring Framework. You can just do spring.collections, and that does some really cool stuff. Like in here, we can do. Well, first thing is I can put a var in here. Notice the I.
Yeah.
That is because it's an interface. It cleans up after itself. So this can be T my class there. And then in here, I do T collections dot create. Oh, sorry, collections dot create list. T my class. And then I can do something funky, which is I can choose owns objects as true, which means that when I add my class objects in there, when it leaves the collection, it frees itself. So that in itself is pretty funky. You know, you want your own garbage collection, this will do it for you. So this is my my list becomes, oh, that's right. Doesn't like spaces at the moment because Zoom. Doesn't like enter keys because Zoom. But anyway, so we create the list there, we store it into my list. I don't know, why is that there? Is that saying it's deprecated or something? Possibly. But anyway, we create the my list. And now, I know what it's probably doing. It's probably saying, I see you've got a class there. You really want to use a different sort of list for a class. So it should really be create object list or something or other. Create. So we can create all sorts of things here. Multi-sets, sorted sets, create sets. Blah, blah, blah. Queues, stacks. There's going to be lists around here somewhere.
I didn't think there were trees in.
Oh, there we go. Sorted object list. Sorted interface list. Sorted list. String list. Interface list. Object list. There we go. We can create an object list. And if we use that instead, it'll stop bugging me. Oh, it's much happier now. Create object list, and we're going to keep hold of it. Okay, so now that my list.
Was that something that's been programmed into the framework to like give that feedback? Or do you think it's just Delphi doing it?
No. What they've done is they've put some sort of warning on there. So if you're using the wrong sort, then it'll raise a warning. See, this one here is an error at the moment, and that's just the Delphi feedback for having an error. The yellow squiggle was a warning, and the blue one is a hint.
Yeah.
For this here, now I can do for each item in my list, I can do something. But before that, maybe I want to do a where. Dot where. Where uses a predicate, which means function of const. I need that space. T my class. Just item there. T my class. It doesn't like spaces. It really doesn't like spaces.
You've got to really want to have a space.
Result becomes, come on, I want the equal sign. I need the space. It's not that hard to program usually on the system, trust me. Let's see. Item dot do something equals 42. So that's good enough for the predicate. It's always going to be true because it always returns 42, but anyway. And then for each, it's an action, which is a procedure. The space worked. Const item t my class begin end, and then we can do something like,
Can you please put the where on the for each on the next line so we can see them? So
yeah, I will do. It's just hitting enter is really hard.
okay.
So
2024.
okay. So that's pretty much everything I wanted to do in there. Now let's format this properly.
Hey, Scott.
Okay. Yep.
Can I suggest something subversive? That for an experiment, not necessarily right now, you could try starting up VS Code and see if it suffers in the same way.
Yeah. Okay, so here we go. So there's my where clause with a predicate. Here is my for each clause with a method or with an action in it. So what it's going to do is it's going to loop through my list, filtering out whatever I want to filter out, and then doing whatever it is to the rest of them. Now that's how good this code is. Now, and when this goes out of scope, because this here is an interface, it'll go out of scope down the bottom here. And because it owns the classes, whatever I put into it is also going to be freed, which means I don't have to clean up after myself. All of this here is just contained. I can go and create objects and put them in here. So I can go in here and put in my list dot add t my class dot create, and I can do this a bunch of times. So I can create a whole bunch of these things. They're all going to be freed up when it leaves.
Would where and for each have to be in that order, or the order doesn't matter?
The for each doesn't have anything returned from it, but the where clause does.
Right.
So the where, you don't need the where clause. We can get rid of that and just do for each. But if you want to put in extra filtering, the where clause works.
So the where sends back like a enumerable or something like that?
Yeah, the where clause. Can I get some help on this? Okay, so this sends back. Oh, darn it. Let's try that again. Expand. Please expand. Doesn't want to expand.
In this case, it's returning for each one.
Okay, it just sends back an enumerable of the same type as the list.
Right.
Now that means because you can do the where clause, you can actually use the where clause inside a regular for in function, and that'll work as well. And yeah, so other things that I use a lot of, I use dictionaries a lot. So it's an I dictionary. It takes 2 generic parameters. So I use those a lot as well. Yeah, that's, one other thing. If we go up here and if we just put in Spring, we can also do things with arrays. So if I do I can do, actually, let's not do it for a string. Let's do this for a double. So there's my 3 items in my array. We can do my T array dot, and then we can do index of, and then we can do index of, and now it's a double. Pass in the array and the value that we're looking for, which is 2.58, and it'll return the index of that double, which should return 1. Now the interesting thing about this is it seems to know about floating point issues. So it actually has a some sort of tolerance mechanism built in, so that it's going to find it approximately, not exactly. Like one of the problems you have with floating points is it's got to be within a certain tolerance, and it sort of knows the floating point types and says, I'll give you the one that is within this tolerance of it. So that's pretty cool. That gives you an index a way to index arrays. I mean, you can do the same thing with lists, and you can do all that sort of stuff. My list.index of, like a regular list can do, but this is just an array. And so you do T array, you do the method, and the method is the one that takes the generic, and that determines what you can actually do with this function. But as you can see, there is a bucket load of different functions that you can do to this thing. Reversing, index, shuffle, sort. So there's a whole bunch of different things that you can do to an array now using just T array, passing in the array as the first parameter and whatever else is the other parameters. So you could actually use this inside a case. Now, I used to do this a lot with strings. You know how you can't do a case statement with strings, except you can, because you can do case. Now I'm going to need another unit. String utils. Once we've got string utils in here, we can do a case, index text, oh, need quotes. And you can do that. So that way you can do a case statement for text. Just using index text. And then here is your array. Your input is usually going to be a variable of some sort. And then you can just use the index of where you find your text in that array. Index text means it's case insensitive. Index string means it's case sensitive.
And you can put a variable in there where my text is?
Yep.
Is that right? Nice. I mean, it'd be nicer. See, this is why I think we need a Delphi ++, you know, like a preprocessor where you could just have a case statement on strings.
Yep.
And it would translate it into this, right? So you could write something very nice. It could still be compiled by the compiler. and then maybe we could point to Embarcadero and say, guys, please.
Oh, I see. Like you got macros with C. And the macro
Well, I
just
mean,
replaces the text with what it ought to look like.
I mean, C++ originally was C with classes, or they called it also C front was its first name, I think.
Personally, I think it might have been called hack.
and you wrote the language, but it translated to C code and then compiled C code because they didn't have a C++ code. I just invented the language.
Yeah.
And,
so it's all macros. We could do a macro that you put all of your quotes in here, and then just before it compiles, it grabs those quoted text, drops one of these things in, pops the text in here, puts the indexes in there, matching them. And you could make it look like it was actually doing a case statement for text if you just had some sort of pre-compile, replace this structure with that structure.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's more and more cases I'm thinking of where, like, I like how they do it in this language, and we can kind of do it. But if we could write it one way and just have it turn into the other way behind the scenes, please.
Look, we could write a template to do this, but it would still look like this. What you want it to do is you want it to look like this.
Yeah, with those running down here.
The thing is, I mean, case statements with strings is something that's common enough, I think, would be common enough that it would qualify as it could warrant a language extension. You know, I don't see why not.
I mean,
what you want it to look like this, and then it goes and adds a scaffolding.
Yeah, exactly. And not just for that.
So like, it looks like this. It compiles like this.
Yeah.
And the thing is also, it wouldn't even need to be just for strings. You could identify that all those are the same type. Okay, I'll make them an array, and then I'll pick them most.
Yeah. Mind you, this thing here, this is Spring Framework, but the concept still exists.
Yeah.
I mean, if Stefan Glinky can do this, then so can Marco Cantu.
Yeah. I mean, that's really nice. Thank you very much. That we like it, but yeah.
I mean, I feel like if you listen in the last, like 8 years, say, to like Delphi meetings, and the people have been putting up with some, like, when the IDE was so bad that people were just, using VS Code. We were meeting in the Artifactory. Yeah, you were particularly affected, I think, maybe.
Yeah, it's because my 4K monitor was just, I could barely use the thing.
Right.
Typing one line of code would take a minute.
So people have put up with some stuff, and they've been submitting some bug requests that they feel haven't been, addressed for years and years and all that sort of thing. And, if you get talking to, say, Vincent Parrott, well, maybe I shouldn't name names, but, not elderly, leaders, thought leaders in our language industry, they're pretty pissed off about some particular things, right?
Yeah.
And the general feeling could be kind of a bit dull or down, and negative. But I don't know, semi recently, Ian Barker's doing the, what do you call it? Development representative type developer interface, whatever. Seems to have a lot of energy, and he's on the forum, and he's saying, complain at me. It's do it. David Millington, I think, is a great guy. The change, the effort they've made bringing C++ up to date, the C++ builder, must have been.
Well, actually, that's probably a good time for me to stop sharing now, and we can talk about that new version, because I bet you're going into this the new Clang stuff that they've just released with 12.1.
Yeah, well, we had basically barely C++ 11 originally. That was like our classic compiler. They added Clang, and it was C++ 11. And then I think David came along with something like, because he was already a developer, and I think he's been there since like 2018 or 17 or something. And not that long after that, they brought it up to C++ 17, because these standards are C++ 11, 14, 17, 20, 23, 26, and so forth. And 17 was a big upgrade, and we got most of that. So that was, like a significant move forward, but it was like 5 years, well, not 5 years behind, some number of years behind.
Yeah.
And then C++ has gone on to C++ 20, which was kind of a huge shift of new things towards like functional ideas, getting towards coroutines, all sorts of things. Like, I'm not a C++ programmer. I know some things about C++, and already, like, now it's C++ 23, and they've got even more things in it. It's a really deep, like the C++, what do you call it? The specification is like some ridiculous number of pages, 1,000, 2,000, something or other. And they've brought it like damn near up to date, and are saying that they will keep it rolling correctly forward from now on. And that's a lot of effort, and a lot
sure is.
And I'm kind of hoping, and these guys are like at the 12.1 webinar, they were talking about maybe kind of, we've got a 64-bit IDE, in our skunk works or whatever, and maybe we kind of can do it, get something going on Linux, and like they're mentioning the stuff without mentioning, and it just feels like maybe there's a bit more energy there, and maybe Delphi's going to get some decent love, hopefully, in the coming years.
Java was supposed to be so purist, and then Microsoft came along and was going to make J++, Java, embrace, extend, extinguish type of thing. But and then the Java community would have none of it because Microsoft. But then Microsoft took basically ideas from Java, Delphi, combined those and made .NET with C#. Now, C#, if you look at it, is not based on C++, it's based on Java, really. But they've added all these extensions, and C# is now pretty complex, but it's also really good to code in, and it's much more preferred than Java. Now, so far, Delphi has been behaving like Embarcadero has been behaving like Sun with Java, keeping it pure as Pascal. But with some of these quality of life things, we could, Delphi could become a bit more complex as a language, but at the same time be a much neater language. Like, for example, those anonymous methods Scott were talking about, they're blocky and bulky. It'd be nice if there was some neater way of doing that, for example. And the case statement that Scott showed, I mean, especially the case statement, why not add little features like that? That's not going to break the whole Delphi style of it, Pascal style. So I agree, it'd be really nice if they did.
And people would love that. I think they'd be like, we can case on strings. Like,
yeah, it would probably help Delphi have a bit better image if it actually updated.
Yeah. Oh, I'm now on the Embarcadero page that shows all of the new stuff. So how about if I do this? I'll just share the screen. But Paul, if you can just give us a chat about these features.
Sure, that's great. Great idea, actually. I was going to, I was looking down here. I was going to say, oh, maybe we could even manage to put off talking about 12.1 to a next time, like use it a bit. But no. This is great. This is a great. Well, I'll do my best. You know, I've used the split editor view. I mean, if you've used Notepad++, and you can take a sort of text window and then split it in half, and then get a bunch of tabs over here, a bunch of tabs over here, and then I think maybe it only does the 2 panes. I'm not sure.
Oh no, you can do as many panes as you like.
Oh, can you?
I mean,
okay.
Even in this picture here, you've got one pane which is showing you the graphics, and then you've got 1, 2, 3 more panes there.
Oh, sorry, I meant Notepad++. I think maybe that.
Sorry. Yep. No, yeah. Go ahead.
No, you're right. Like that was probably my first experience of like, okay, I can get 2 things, on the screen, and there's a bunch of tabs here and a bunch of tabs over here. But yeah, like you're saying, this you can split it up, you can split it down, you can have a set of tabs here, you can have a set of tabs, you can have the same file, but cursor positioned at different places, so you keep a look at like definitions and the body of whatever you're writing at the same time.
Look, I'm currently running with a whole bunch of extra edit windows because I want to have 2 or 3 units visible to me while I'm working on the third one. And this here with the split screen, that gives me so many more options than what I've currently got with just these floating panels. I mean, I'm quite excited by this.
And also when if you view the same code in 2 windows and type, then the same changes are happening in the other window. Yeah. And then that made me think like, well, what if that other window wasn't on your computer and was on somebody else's Delphi, right? You can like if you've got that happening to that extent, maybe we can get some remote programming as well, pair that sort of thing.
Remote pair programming would be an awesome feature. I'm not sure that I would use it because my other programmer sits 2 meters to my right. But...
Or you could do it to mess with them while they're programming.
But I love this. This is really exciting me a lot.
And I don't know if it'll say it, but I was I mean, there was an unfortunate incident as we were approaching Delphi's, what are we now, 28th
birthday?
29th birthday. Only like the one, well, if that was like March or something, like everything went to hell in January with the servers and the registration and get it and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And it was supposed to be fixed in a week, and it took 2.5 months. It wasn't a good look coming right up to the.
Is Quality Central back, or can we put in bugs now?
There's a new one apparently. Yeah, I don't know the link, but
yeah. I'll track it down. But I've been trying to put in a bug with 12. Actually, I should get 12.1 to see if they've already solved it, but I wasn't able to report it. There was a unit, and whenever this unit was in my program, it would have an internal error when I tried to compile.
The old one has been frozen, and apparently there's a new one.
Yep. Okay, so we've got split screens. I like this here. Improvements to VCL and FireMonkey libraries for higher quality performance and rendering quality. Yeah, it doesn't really mean much to me.
Yeah, well, somebody was having a very strong tantrum's not the right word, on Facebook about, and apparently this person's come from academia and I think some pretty big hardware, graphics hardware. Yeah. And he was particularly incensed against Marco in particular, which I thought was maybe a little unproductive. But I mean, apparently, I haven't chased up to find the whole story, but like in the course of like 4 days, he seemed to have been like, now be happy. Somebody's listened to him, and maybe like he thinks he's got a solution that should go into like the code for everyone.
Yeah.
And that he's talking to someone in Embarcadero about it. So
yep.
Wow.
Personally, I don't actually know what the issue is. I mean, I'm running 4K all over the place. I'm not seeing a problem.
I think it's in, like, I don't know if it's 3D graphics, but
Oh, okay.
I mean,
Oh, look.
people are getting into like gamey type,
yep.
maybe action something, or you know, probably more than we generally do on Windows, I guess.
Yeah. And while they're at it, guys, you know, throw us a bone. Those of us who are still working with VCL, give us a 3D component, even if it's sort of like a wrapper for FireMonkey, so you can just drop a little FireMonkey 3D thing inside your VCL app. I mean, come on, guys, seriously, I'm dying.
The editor views, the different windows, are they floating? Can they float, say, onto another monitor?
Oh, yes. Yep. So let me just pull one of my code windows across. So you've got this here. This is a new edit window, and it's just got a couple of units sitting in it. Now this one here, you could, in Delphi 12.1, you could actually split this one as well as your main one.
Okay.
So you can split those as well. One of the other things that's a really good improvement though, something that I can't do right now, I can actually drag one of my code windows between the two, one of the code tabs between the two code windows. What I can't do is drag it out and just have it form a new code window around it. In the new 12.1, apparently, you can just go in here, grab a tab, drag it out, and it creates a new code window just floating there.
Ooh,
and then you can start splitting that one up.
I haven't tried that. Makes note.
Yeah. Yeah, if I'm telling porcupines, you'll have to let me know, because I don't actually have 12.1 on my system yet. All right, so that's split views.
The database stuff I don't know much about.
Okay, REST client library and runtime library is exciting for me, because I'm just starting to use REST with some of my clients. Official FireDAC support for Firebird 5 and Postgres SQL version 16. Now, Firebird, is that the database that's produced by Google or someone, or am I thinking?
That's Firebase.
Firebase.
And Firebird is like free interbase.
Oh, well, that's very nice of them to still play ball with the guys that pirated them.
Well, didn't they? Oh no, okay.
Open
I don't know. I did read something about the background at some stage.
Yeah, well, if that's nice, yeah, I'd certainly like to find out a bit more about that. That's pretty good. And Postgres SQL, I'm not really using any of these, you know, less than mainstream databases.
Well, Postgres apparently is a big deal. Melbourne meeting, we're talking about it last time. Apparently, Vincent's a big fan. Somebody else is. Apparently, it's very, very solid. Very.
Yeah, I've used it with one client, but never really gotten into it.
I think they said it does really good as far as maybe encryption or.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'm not.
And again, this here is a client. This here is an enterprise level database. It works at the multi-user level, which means that you're probably only going to be able to use this one here with Delphi Enterprise, not Delphi Professional.
I don't know.
Right, LSP improvements. We all like that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I started to say before about it. Yeah, I went off track there, didn't I? About the servers going down and all that sort of thing. But when Get came back for Delphi 12, it was suddenly really fast. like it has never been in the past. It was like, get it, boom, like all the data loaded within like 3 or 4 seconds, and I was like, oh.
Sounds awesome.
And you could scroll up, and then the filters, instead of taking like 12 seconds to redisplay again, were coming up really snappy. I was like, oh my God, thank God.
That's something for us to look
forward
to.
Database management system.
And yet at the same time, they also didn't have, I mean, like, then they did have get it available for 10.4, but not for 11. Bit of a mess. I think it's all sorted out now.
Yep. Delphi LSP. I'm feeling LSP a little bit with my current version of Delphi, especially with the code error highlighting. One of the things that really ticks me off is if you look at the error highlighting and you're using a anonymous method, anonymous methods always have a problem with your error highlighting if there is any sort of error above it in the code.
Okay.
So to illustrate this, I think I can do this. Smooth this over here. Can't see a thing because of that. All right, so this here, that's it's got a bunch of anonymous methods in there. If I go in here and then I do right, notice how this error has all of a sudden just appeared here. There's no overloaded version that can be used with this. Why? No reason. No reason. There is not a problem with this. The problem is here. And once we've got this error here, it wants to have an error there. It drives me crazy. Oh, by the way, I found out what was wrong with my other Delphi not being able to drag. For some reason, it thought it was maximized.
Okay.
All right. So anyway, LSP. I'm any LSP improvements good in my books.
One of the key features, I think, in 12.1 is it allows you to type spaces.
Ah, yes, I was hearing about this. Now, apparently, that's an option somewhere.
No, I was just stirring you about your Zoom problems.
Oh, yeah, that too. No, there was something that they mentioned in the broadcast about this, where it would automatically start trying to calculate stuff as you typed, but there was something you could switch on where it wasn't so eager to try and code complete for you. So they've actually, the code completion stuff, there we go, auto invoke and code auto show.
I think it's actually in the picture there, about the delay. Is that for?
Yeah, so we've got auto invoke. We've got the long delays of 2 seconds or immediate. Yep. But there was also something else about you could get it to ignore it under certain conditions.
Oh, yeah. There was a whole table about what you want it to do when you do a right square bracket and a curly bracket and a parenthesis. Yeah, also I haven't looked that up actually.
Yeah, one of the weird things with code completion is that if you try to do any range tests, you start your range by say you're trying to do a range of set items. So you put your open bracket, you put your first enumerated value, and then you put 2 dots and then your last one. But as soon as you put your first dot, it tries to code complete with the property.
Yeah.
And it's just sort of like, no, I don't want a code completion. I want a second dot.
Well, in 12, I didn't pay a lot of attention to it, but I'd start typing like, 4 in, to do a 4 in something or other, right? So 4x in, and then when I look up from my I don't know where I'm looking. Maybe I'm looking at my fingers, but it had put in like some 12, 13 like characters of like, I'm like, that wasn't what I wanted at all. It was like responding to really strange, and I don't do that much.
The code completion. Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of code completions that are automatic surrounding the for statement. Now, one of them is if you want to do a for in, you actually have to type for in and then press space. If you type for space, it automatically thinks it's a regular for I becomes equal to 0 to count do.
Because of the code templates, and I think I've known that for like 4 or 5 years and still do it wrong. Like, and then just backspace over the things it gave me and type it in. I'm no pro.
So you know, obviously there's been other people that have been frustrated with that as well. All right. So okay, some nice stuff there. Improved visual assist was for C++ Builder.
Visual assist by something Tomato Software. Whole Tomato Software, I think it is. Apparently is like a really well-respected, I don't know, like add-on maker. Like,
oh, that's right. Yeah, and they integrated it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's only maybe it's 80% or something or other. But like this, the thing about like, what do you call it, Code Insight or that sort of thing for C++ has been like grinding people who do a lot more C++ obviously than I do, grinding their gears for either for coming up slow or working and then stopping working, or just like crashing or needing restart. Like it's been not like, or like you take in Delphi, you want to be able to jump up and down between definitions and all that. Like, what do you call it? Definition and
interface. Oh yeah, interface and implementation.
Yeah, implementation. That's right. So yeah, hopefully people will be getting a lot more of what they like there. And and the next point about modernizing toolchain is really like it's like Delphi advanced in 2009 in a sense, like when it got RTTI, generics, anonymous methods. Another thing that I keep every single time forgetting.
Attributes.
Probably. But it like I've been posting on the WADUG forum a bit about the idea of coroutines because they kind of fascinate me, and other languages have it. And like for a start, apparently there's a Spring4D branch about coroutines, and I'm going to.
Stefan, I'm not familiar with coroutines. What's that about?
Okay. Where's the best? Oh, I've got a PDF. I'll have to try and find it. But well, how about we go through this? I'll write down and we'll come back to it. Coroutines. But anyway, you can compile C++23 coroutines in C++ Builder right now with 12.1, and that's impressive, basically.
Yeah, and so they're practically up to date now.
It hasn't been impressive for quite a long time, right? So.
Yep.
Yep.
Right, Android API. It looks like they're okay. So this is something that's good. When they first dropped into this space, one of the criticisms was that they would deliver the new compatibility late. But you can see here the next requirement is August 2024, and they've delivered it. So we're now getting compatibilities with Android well ahead of schedule, which I think is important.
I mean, this is a sore point for the C++ people because they dropped Android 64-bit, I guess, or maybe Android completely. I can't remember. Like a year ago or something. Basically, just saying we can't do it. We're just being honest. We can't do it. And yeah, some people not at all happy about that because maybe they got software. And some people were going from C++ to Delphi just so they can keep a program going or something. But I think the new changes to some extent, with Clang 15, they're up to now. They went from Clang 5 to Clang 15. So, I mean, that's only.
Yeah, it looks like they're really trying to put in the big effort.
But, I mean, I don't know how quickly it can manifest, but they're kind of saying, like, this is putting down the foundation for better things, to be able to probably maybe do something like this in where they couldn't before.
Right. Okay, so what else is in 12.1? High DPI support to the IDE. One of the problems that I had was that I couldn't work with multiple screen resolutions. Well, not screen resolutions, but if you screen scaling, like if I do my display settings here, now you're going to see what my screens look like. Okay, so I've got my 3 screens here. Now, this one here is a Surface Studio. This here, I have got this at 100% rather than the recommended 200. And the reason why I do that is because if I have different scalings between these, Delphi stuffs up like you wouldn't believe. Now, I don't know if they've solved that in 12 or 12.1, but it was a really big problem in 11.
I could be wrong, but I've seen Windows controls also screw up across 2 screens. Like, you end up with an edit box with like trying to fit letters that are this big into a space this big. So I don't know if, Windows might not be helping.
So I changed all my scaling to 100% to solve that problem.
You said you work with, there's another guy next to you. People have said before about multiple people editing code that they might have different DPI settings and stuff. Is that something you have to look out for?
He's actually running the same way I am because he's got a Surface Studio with a secondary screen as well. So he's running at 100% as well. With Delphi 11, they started allowing you to change the resolution of the user interface, not just the editor. And so all of the user interface we've scaled up. So we're using it. We're looking at 4K screens at 100%, and we're scaling the fonts up so that we're not trying to use the magnifying glass at the same time. So I'm interested in finding out whether or not this has solved even more problems where that's concerned. Target Windows 11, I thought we'd been doing that forever, quite frankly. Web browser component support for both EI and new WebView 2. They've had that forever as well, but that was a Get It plugin. Is that now built in?
I think you still get it through Get It.
Okay.
Get it through Get It.
That's why it's called that. All right.
Target Windows 11 is a strange thing to say, though. Like,
yeah, it's like we have been doing that since Windows 11 came out, essentially.
I mean, it's still Windows, right? But I guess they're saying take advantage of something particular to the Windows 11.
Yeah. Now, I don't know if we're straying into just version 12 stuff at this point. Use VCL styles at design time. I mean, that would be handy. So it's proper WYSIWYG when it comes to adding styles.
Is that in the form designer, I guess?
Yeah, I would hope so, yeah.
Why not FireMonkey at the same time? VCL gets things first, I find, always, except maybe for the 3D thing, but yeah.
VCL styles provides design time support. There we go. View at design time, how styles will impact UI at runtime. Yeah, I like that. Oh, and isn't that nice? They're using this is a Surface Studio. By the way, it's actually a very nice system to program on, by the way. It's just overly expensive.
So, but made by Microsoft?
Yeah, this thing here, yeah.
Like the Surface tablet type? I mean,
yep. So you got
related.
Yeah. So there's a whole range of Surface products. This one here is called Surface Studio. So I'm actually programming on something that looks like this.
Is it touchscreen or?
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's touchscreen. It's pen. Here we go. It uses one of these digitizer pens to draw on the screen with. And you got this weird thing here. It's a puck. It's essentially it's got a button on it. You can click the button, you can rotate it, and it feeds back information to whichever Bluetooth it's been connected to. But the interesting thing is some programs are puck enabled. So when you drop it onto your surface, so you lay the screen down flat, you can put the puck onto the screen and UI will pop up around the puck. And so as you twist the dial, you'll actually see visual feedbacks on the screen wherever the dial is, and you're dialing it.
That's some Blade Runner stuff.
Yeah, it's a nice gimmick. I haven't used it very much. I use the pen a lot more though. So VCL, latest platform versions, yeah. Skier. Now I've started using a lot of Skier lately, and I'm impressed with it. Having it built in may be the reason why this thing doesn't compile though, because ironically the stuff that I'm compiling with is Skier based.
I think there has been some feedback about.
Can you remind me what Skier is? Is that a graphics?
Yeah, it is.
Graphics. What is it? Graphics speed or is it graphics?
It's essentially a graphics API. It was developed, I think, by Google, but they've released a specification for it, and so now Skier is a library in multiple different languages that all works the same way. So if you're doing Skier in Java, you can jump onto Delphi, and Skier works practically the same in Delphi as it does in Java. It's got basically the same API. It's heavily interface based, and I think that's probably because it's trying to mimic Java and these, more garbage collection-y type languages.
Memory managed languages.
Yeah, that's the one. But yeah, it's quite a nice little framework. There's actually a Skier 3D, but they have not implemented that, which ticks me off, because if they implemented that, I'd have it in VCL. Still on my quest for a VCL 3D engine. Improved mobile design. Yeah, let me know if people are getting bored with this, because I'm not sure if I'm pretty sure Skier for Delphi was introduced in 12.0, not 12.1. Oh yeah, and the icons. If you're doing Android stuff here, one of the things that they've done is that they've got a lot more editing capabilities happening inside the IDE when it comes to images. So if you are doing an Android app, you often have to do a whole bunch of different splash screens. What they're doing now is you drop a splash screen in there and it auto-generates a whole series of them for you.
Oh.
So you don't have to go messing around with your graphic program producing a dozen different versions of your splash screen. Oh, and they've now got an API generator, comprehensive set of Windows API headers converted to Object Pascal to make it easier for Delphi developers to call any Windows platforms. They've even given us the utility that you can point it at one of the APIs and it'll generate the Delphi stubs for it. Biometric authentication. Yeah, okay, so now we're into 12.0. We're definitely into 12.0 now. So perhaps our little tour of 12.1 is finished.
Do you want to? Does it go much further?
Embedded interbase dev edition.
Oh yeah, multi-line strings. That's definitely 12.0.
Yep, multi-line strings. I quite like those. Well, I quite like the idea of those. Haven't used them yet.
And were you the one saying, or it might have been someone else online, that the triple
quote?
Yeah, I guess that's what it is. Triple quote, like the text treats the left margin as where you place the first character or something.
Okay, so you can see this little grey bar there. That's your left-hand justification for your text, and it's wherever your final set of 3 quotes starts. So that character there represents the left-hand character going up to here.
Nice, I like it. Yeah, that's good. It's a nice touch that someone thought of that.
Yeah, well, you often wonder how multi-line things go if you don't have some sort of rule like that. So I like how they came out of the box and said immediately, this is how it works. So you're not guessing at it.
Yeah, simple, straightforward. Like it's a very elegant.
And look at this. These are the typical use case scenarios, isn't it? SQL, HTML, JSON. I mean, if you're working with any of those, I mean, I actually wrote my own SQL editor program to avoid having to deal with all of the single line garbage that we've had forever with Delphi. And I don't begrudge writing that piece of software. It saved me a lot of time. It's now quite advanced. But the reason why I did it was primarily because I didn't want to have to put a lot of Chrome around the text for the SQL.
Awesome.
So I think that's it. That's our tour of Delphi 12 and 12.1. And yeah, the things that have got me most excited, things like the user interface upgrade there. LSP, I think, could be a great improvement. But one of the things they did mention that you don't see here is that they said that they've been focused on stability and bug fixes. So hopefully, whenever they say that, I'm sort of hoping that we're going to get down to a manageable level of bugs. There always seems to be, when they say that they've killed 1,200 bugs, it's sort of like, that's great, but how many times do you have to kill 1,200 bugs?
They just don't have a count on how many we introduced.
Yeah, it's sort of like, yeah. What was that? You got number of bugs, ink, repeat until 0.
All right. How about we'll go back to.
Sorry, you want me to share again?
No. If I share, and do I even know what I'm sharing? Must be that one. I go back to our WADUG. So I posted these things just in general about the meeting. If you can see the forum, hopefully. So release of 12.1. I'll talk about this Perth meeting location. we did the $10,000. I don't think we need to really go into this, but this was the guy that was getting exercised about FMX animations not being as smooth as he felt they really should be.
Yeah.
But apparently is getting some connection at.
They've been listening.
Yeah, apparently. He said he was talking to Kyle Wheeler, and I think he's like Marco's boss or something, as far as I know.
Oh, okay.
And that guy, Kyle, I mean, I think he's, it's not a name that I've heard around for a long time, not like, Marco and David. But he's been present, like at least in the, to some extent, not like a day-to-day thing, in the Facebook C++ forum group or whatever. Maybe in the Delphi one, I'm not sure, but I mean, like, at least like they were there seeing someone different in the C++ world, like be pretty damn rude, like really angrily frustrated to an excessive degree. But I mean, at least they're getting that direct feedback in a sense. But anyway, Linux Backdoor. Okay. There's a 1 billion line challenge that people have been doing in different languages. But we can save that for a different time.
Well, I can tell you that you can't have 1 billion lines in Delphi.
To read a CSV file of weather stations and temperatures to calculate, like, I don't know, an average, a max, and a min or something or other.
Yeah.
And the UK people were talking about it the last meeting they had, which has been a little while ago. And there's a guy there. Now I won't be able to. It's kind of a Dutch-sounding name. And he said he'd done it and could do it in like 40 seconds, but the leading like overall languages was like, I think in Java, 1 second.
1 billion lines in 1 second in Java? That seems really unlikely.
I don't know. It's
isn't Java an interpreted language? It doesn't use bytecode or something?
Well, I think like JavaScript, that it's got like 20 years of very big companies, investing and making it like
doing what with 1 billion lines? What, opening up in an editor, compiling it?
To read a file, like take in the data. There's multiple. There's not
streaming it out with some modification.
It's just to get the data in and calculate. I think, because now I'm having second, but like average, maximum, and min over the entire database of temperature.
Oh, I see.
But that doesn't sound right, because then it wouldn't be challenged by the fact that there'd be multiple entries for. Anyway, you can read about it online. Like someone gave a really good bit of a story around it, and what the Delphi / Free Pascal people were trying to have a go at it, it's pretty competitive.
Actually, there's a friend of mine in Scotland who does computational chemistry and does everything in Java, and there he's got huge text files containing numbers. Like I said, is that really what you want to do? But apparently it's just quick and easy, apparently.
Yeah.
And he does some pretty advanced. He's Mensa candidate, seriously. I mean, the degrees he has in math, and they are advanced math. Oxford and all. But anyway, so yeah, it's just streams huge amounts of data and then dumps them into the next file, which then it just has a sort of chain of streams to then work out.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, I wonder if it's a library he's using, which is GNIME, as in GNIME. It's that library.
Yeah, I'm surprised that a bytecode language is actually that fast.
Well, I think, yeah, well, I mean, I don't think they were just doing
I think the bytecode is actually compiled properly. So the bytecode is just intermediate. So you can
that's right. It's uses JIT, which means that it actually compiles it just as it runs.
Yes.
But doesn't that take time as well?
Just in time compiling. Well, the programs might not be very big, so it might take like a fraction of a second because computers today, and then that's the compilation, and then off it goes and churns out through lots of data.
So really what it's talking about is how optimized is your compiler. And they're saying their JIT compiler is highly optimized for whatever system they use to do it on.
Possibly, and possibly very optimized for specifically handling strings, because Java is used a lot for web development.
Yep.
I presume. I'm just presuming here. So.
Speaking of optimized, apparently, as far as Unicode, like I guess it's turning between like different code pages, or turning like what do you call it, UTF-8 into UTF-16 or something like that.
Yeah.
I've seen I saw an article once comparing all these different approaches, and apparently like Windows code is like super optimized for doing that type of work.
Oh yeah.
I can't remember, anyway, that's slightly off topic, but I'm just trying to where did I put him? C++. Andreas, there we go.
In the pause, I might just say good night, everyone. I'll probably head home. Cheers, but I'll catch you next.
What if you've got another 5 minutes? You asked about coroutines.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so I was just, so let's say Andreas Vertig coroutines. I think I can find in the first.
A good presentation, like a thorough presentation another time would be preferable, I think.
No, I was just looking for a picture right at the beginning. Here we go. Just this one.
Yeah.
So a coroutine is, I mean, it's a lot of things, but it's basically, you think of a function as something you go into, you do the code, and you go out, right? That's a function because it's got an input and an output. And a coroutine is a generalization of a function to an interruptible function. So like async await. Well, I'm not sure. I'm having trouble over time correlating. Like JavaScript is nominally single-threaded, but it can, then there's an event loop outside that somehow, and it can like put work out to be done while other things happen. C# has coroutines in Unity. Kotlin has had coroutines for a long time, and it's basically like cooperative multitasking. And you can do your function for a bit, yield, so go back to someplace else, either predetermined or determined by an executor or something or other, and then eventually it comes back to your function, and you remember everything about where you were, and then you can continue like calculating. And I don't even really like have it in my head about like the things that go ahead.
I just say it's like you call a method and the method goes, oh, go fetch us from a server, and that might take a bit long, and you don't want to stall the execution. You say, oh, you know what? While I'm in for that, you do your thing and then come back to me later, and then it comes back, and I've got the response now. I can continue. Oh, another call. You come back to me later. That's what, in principle, that's what it is, right?
Yeah, like I think I've seen somewhere that parallel is supposed to be there's all these words that are kind of like close together, but parallel is like working together, and you have parallel, you have asynchronous, you have a C word that I can't think of. Not that one. But it's like one of them's working together and the other one's waiting together, right? And like you say, with the like serving out web requests or that sort of thing, like you don't have to keep being connected all the time, but it's great to like not forget where you were up to type thing. And the thing was, like, threads have X amount of like heaviness to them, and you can maybe get 1,000 threads or something working in a Windows machine or something before it's like falling over. But coroutines, which are also sometimes, Windows has fibers, and apparently that's a bit different from actual coroutines. Coroutines are also known as green threads, but they're lightweight, and you could like conceivably have 1 million of them, right? So instead of having a megabyte of stack each one, they might have a K or 2K or 20K of stack. Yeah. So anyway, more information to be known over time, basically.
Yeah.
And you're saying that Spring Framework is leaning into that?
Oh yes, there's a let's search for it. Spring4D Coroutines.
I would like a thorough presentation on that sometime. That'd be cool.
Well, Stefan just before was replying on the forum about it, so I'm going to like try and hit him up for a like. Oh, this might not be Delphi. This is not Delphi. Sorry, but yeah, lightweight threads.
I don't know if it's the right time though, because it's becoming autumn now, isn't it? Or supposed to be anyway.
It's been pretty damn warm.
Yes.
But there's a whole computer science behind these things. I don't know if anyone's heard of continuations.
There you have under the search only for Spring4D.
Yeah, right. Yes. There we go. Feature / coroutines.
The most awesome thing about Delphi is that it's not C++.
I mean, every language says that. They don't want to be. You said he. Look, this here says Stefan's blog, coroutines are not dead end at all. In fact, there's more and more. But then when we go to the reference, we're not seeing it. Oh, well, he's written a lot. No, I'll find it. Anyway, we'll report back more in the future.
Those GUID things reminds me. One of the things I think has recently been added to the language to Delphi with regards to databases is that they now have a lightweight GUID. It generates keys that are guaranteed unique, but non-linear. So it's not like an increment function where it's just 1, 2, 3, 1 million. It's random numbers, but they're always unique.
Okay. Of the same 16.
It's like a GUID, but it's smaller. One of the big things about a GUID is it's very large.
So it's not just some guy inside the computer. It's not someone inside the computer pressing Control-Shift-G every single time the computer wants one.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, Peter, I didn't mean to delay you excessively.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's also, I think we've been going for kind of 3 hours. It's so yeah. The only, so we covered the meeting location, right? So last year I went to a Python WA meeting. I think the second one I ever went to. Just sat down. Another guy eventually sat next to me as the talks was getting started, and we listened to it. And there was first one was really good. It was on like graph networks from 2 different people. Since then, it's been on like Django and well, the last one was on how Amazon Go works, and like got like 500 cameras inside like the size of a deli, and people wander in, grab stuff, and leave, and like
Isn't that
keeps
just
track
California?
Well, New York, but in a different way.
Yeah. California,
But,
New York, they just walk in, grab stuff, leave. They've been doing that for ages.
That's pretty popular here, isn't it?
Occasionally.
The payment thing is not really there, but state government doesn't care.
So yeah, the 5-minute. Yeah, not quite the same. No expensive cameras or scales on the shelves, and motion tracking, all of that lacking. So I was at this meeting. The guy, like, we had a 5-minute break before the next one. Is like, I asked him, what are you doing? He's like, oh, you used to be, programming, but now he's like kind of managing other programmers here in, a business here in Perth. And asked me like, what are you doing? Like, oh, well, I'm 400 years old. I started with BASIC and Turbo Pascal, and pretty much at that point he's like, oh, I love Delphi. And it's like, but the other talk was start, calm down, like, do not hump people's legs in public. They don't like it. Just chill, right? And I kind of got, I found out at the end, where does he work? And I think he mentioned his name. And we all had to leave, the building by a certain time. So, and I had to get home. So I didn't have much chance then, but I must have found his email and through the meetup or something or other. And he was like, yeah, I used to do Delphi. I love Delphi. He's working in Murray Street, this place called Horizon Digital. And maybe you could come to our office for meetings. And I'm like, that'd be great. I'm just picturing like some room, like somewhere. And but he was actually on, when I emailed him, he was on holidays overseas, and then contacted me saying like, hey, I've come back and I found out like our company has opened up like this on the screen type situation to like people doing stuff online, like podcasters or I don't know, whatever, for free, right?
Very good.
And I was like, God damn, like, amazing. So I was talking to Scott Hollows about like, because it's kind of hard to get in touch with the guy. I guess he's pretty busy. But I like just recently, last week, I went to another Python meeting, And they said the food was sponsored by this company, and 3 people were like, yeah, no worries. And they're like, yeah, they'll stand up to say like, oh, thank you, basically. So then when that was over, I went over to talk to them and just say like, oh, I didn't want to bother the guy that I met, but we talked briefly about, the facility that you have there. And in between having talked to him, like I had this crazy idea, like, we've got the symposium coming up. That's all day long.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, said, like, I haven't brought this up before, and like maybe this is just dumb idea or something, but like, do you do events that take all day? And like, she's like, yeah, no, all the time. There's no problem. And like availability might be a problem, but like, it's not a crazy idea. And I was like, oh, and they've got, they're set up for like internet connection and screens and kind of audio and that sort of stuff. And so I have to follow up. I mean, she got back to me maybe last night or something or other, just to say like, look, book it for the date and come in and have a quick look around and see what the setup is. I'm like, yes. So I should have mentioned from the agenda, like, we've got the symposium coming up Friday 17th of May.
Okay.
So and so it's looking like anyone who's keen, it's in Murray Street. It's kind of near the Pierce Street parking. There's a point. When we were thinking about it for just monthly meetings in person, parking is free from 6 p.m. onwards. So like 100 meters from the business or something. All day in Perth, we might want to arrange something different. I don't know. Carpool or whatever, and don't know. I hadn't thought about that before.
Public transport.
Yes.
In Perth. But yeah, that is something that we're kind of looks like progressing along nicely.
Yeah, it's good. Yes.
I think I'll leave the other stuff, but I might just. So I started, if I can mention, because it kind of ties into what Scott was showing with the anonymous functions and stuff. There's the advent of code, which is, like a once a year, forgotten now how many days, 20 days, 24 days, something or other, like progressive coding challenges that, the people who are right into it get in and blitz and solve maybe within minutes, I don't know, and they have like a leader table and all that sort of thing. But a lot of other people around the globe might just do it for practice or to try out a new language, because at the end of the year and blah, blah, and that sort of thing. And so I had this idea, not only to do it in Delphi as functionally as possible, but also to then like use it to try and learn Spring4D, and then also to do it in Rust, and then also to do it in C++. But that'll take a while. And I just thought, like, if the problem is hopefully I've copied some of the. Okay, so it says like you're like you're managing slaves and porters or something or other in a jungle, and you're carrying stuff in backpacks and all this sort of thing. And no, that was the first one. Okay, strangely, the second one was about trying to figure out a strategy for paper, scissors, rock. Okay, but this is my whole program solution, and why it kind of ties into what Scott was doing is I tried to do this years ago and I couldn't get my head around it, but now that I've maybe learned a little bit more, it seems to talk forever about this. I just want to point out that if we can, and you guys, there we go. Maybe, all right. Oh, now this one's opened as well, of course. Why did I go back? Why? All right, get it together. Get it together. Functional ideas, okay, is kind of like having a data structure, like the things that we tend to do, or we did in like Delphi in 1990 or 2000, you would call procedural programming, and then there was like object-oriented programming comes along, and so functional is kind of like having a data structure and then like pouring functions or applying functions into it rather than this. I have a presentation, and so a dictionary, I guess, maybe even a hash table, I'm not sure. Anything that's like enumerable, like in Spring4D, like, and enumerable. And if you apply our function, right, to this container, so this container, we're going to say for now, is of everything is of a particular type. And what do we know about functions? They take a particular type as input and return a particular type as output. It could be from integer to integer because it's +1, or it could be from integer to string because it's .toString. It could be whatever. It could be taking a string of web pages and returning like captured HTML or anything, but this is a transformation from a list of these keys, this type up the top, to a list of these types down the bottom, and it's all by one function. It's just by take that function and apply it to the whole thing. And one thing that's good about that is like all of these actions are independent, right? Assuming it's not like UTF-8, where like, but even if it was UTF-8, where you can have any particular character could have variable lengths of representation. I mean, each block would still fit one after the other, like a sequence. So with that in mind, if we look here at this function here, list map, this is all in a namespace, I guess you would say, because Delphi won't let us do it any other way. List map is something that takes, forget list map. We really want the second one. Okay, we'll go to the second one. A list map and two types. So we're thinking about having a list of one particular type, and this function over here that turns type T into type U, right? Turns integer into integer. Could be integer, right? Turns integer into string, turns string into JSON, whatever it is. We just have the list, we have the function, and we smash them together and produce another list. So you might say like map is like a shape conserving function, because if you had a list of like 10 things, you're going to end up, and you've got a function to apply to them all, you end up with a list of 10 things. Filter is like taking a list and a predicate, like Scott was showing, and ending up with another list. But because that predicate might be excluding some of your list, now you're kind of like, you may be shrinking what you had before. You may have what you had before, you may have nothing, you've got something in between. And reduce is sort of a different flavor. It's to take a list of things and collapse them. So like if we have 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 in an array, if we use a function called a binary function, okay, it has to be a binary function called like add, well, we can add 1 and 2 and get a result, and then add on 3 and get a result, and then add on 4 and get a result. And in the end, it all collapses down to one number. We had 10 numbers, it'll collapse down to one number. And there are mathematical properties to that, because the binary operation in that particular case, we're going to take in, say, an integer and produce an integer. And there's a thing called associativity, which means basically we can do those addings in any order. You know, we could do these two, separately these two, separately these two, separately those two, get answers for all that, and then combine them again, and then combine, like, all this stuff can be done well. And I'm kind of losing the point where I tried to tie it into what you were showing, Scott, but I don't know if you can see the idea. Like, they're very simple to implement. In, like, if I've got a list and a function, then I get my end list by just like going through the list and applying the function, right? You know, that's
so that, yeah,
applying the function all the way through the list.
You got a collection,
yeah,
and
well,
you
that's
just apply
like
the same thing over and over to each item in that list. Yep.
And but like this part of the is a bit like what do you call it? Implementation hiding, in the sense that this is doing it in a linear fashion, but you could be more crazy about it. You know, you could, if you were Google, you could be like, Google got one of their big deal things was map reduce back in, like, I don't know, 2004 or 5 or something. Like, there was like a key technology that they could, and I did go back and look it up, and now it's gone out of my brain. Like, you know, it looked like in those days people talked about map reduce, Google and map reduce, it. They could span out all these like operations across a data center, have them all working independently, and come back to a data set result, you know, without having to go linearly through a sequence of something or other.
Yeah.
The only difference between this list map and this other list map is that it's one being specialized for string. Like reduce is just, you've got this type, and if you've got a binary operation that will take two of that type and cut them into one, right? There's a mathematical
relationship.
Like with add, right? We know there's always going to be a neutral that there should always be a neutral element, so like 1 plus 0. Like we can add as many zeros to anything, it makes no difference. If we're doing multiplying, we can multiply by 1, it makes no difference, right? So if we're going to start off this reduction, this chain of applying binary operations, we start off with like the neutral element, like 0. We start with 0, then we add 1, then we add 2, then we add 3, then we add 4, going on and on. Okay. Okay. Sorry, this is kind of dragging on, and it wasn't as much as I really meant to say about it, but this is stuff that would be nice if like it was easy in Delphi, like to take a function, say that takes, you know, transforms double to integer by just, you know, cutting off the decimal points or something, and then a second function that takes integer to string, right? And then of course you can combine them because you're going to go double to integer to string. And like this, I guess this took me years ago. I couldn't picture this as it's a function. So this is not really how I was brought up in Pascal, right? Like here's a function and another function, and this function returns a function. And we can do it with this our anonymous method type syntax, whatever. But in, can I type in? No, I can't. No, I can't down here. Yeah, it doesn't matter. But in languages that have more concise syntax, that'd be like hardly any characters long, really. So this is composing two functions. This is composing functions. But the only thing I really want to show. Oh, where'd the code go? Sorry, guys. I ended up with this like elf list. This thing had, this can't be about. Okay, all right. There's an elves carrying backpacks in here somewhere, but where in Delphi we have to write this like, okay, I'm going to do a map of resource type that takes a string list, a function that transforms it, and it looks like that. What I'd really like to be writing is just map that thing, map data structure function, right? That if we could do type, if our generic inference was better, because we can do generic inference some of the times, but we can't really infer on generics that are inside the function arguments. Anyway, I think that's more than enough of that. I will report back when I have something sensible to say. So that could be a long, long time. Thank you. Oh, I mean, someone mentioned maybe in a podcast or something about as an interview question asking people to write an anagram. So like basically take an input sequence of letters and a dictionary, and you know, just find all the valid anagrams of the letters that got provided. So basically like Scrabble word finder type situation. If anyone wants to do that for a hobby activity in the next month, I'd like to see what you come up with. I tried to do it myself. Well, I wanted to start doing it myself and didn't get that far. So that's me done. Oh, sorry, stop sharing. Podcast. podcast. Yeah, we talked about them. Okay. So, (9:45). When did I start? I think I took more time than I wanted to. I'm sorry about that. But thanks so much, you guys, for coming along again. Scott, that was really, I think, the best description of Spring4D stuff that I've seen. Like, you know, the most, you know, conceivable.
Thank you.
And yet there's so much more to it, isn't there?
Oh, yeah.
Like,
it would take forever to go through the entire lot. There is so much there, but those are the things that I'm most familiar with.
Yeah, I feel like people could really benefit from, hey, Scott, how you doing? How'd you like to do a talk for WADUG Australia about Spring4D and how you use it? Maybe put it in the back of your head and
sure.
Like, I think people really like people responded. Stefan was in the symposium 2 years ago, I think, if not last year. I think it was 2 years ago, and people really liked it. Or liked having him there.
Yeah.
And having someone who can speak human and also uses his library framework, I think would be a big hit, actually. If you could, you know, maybe pick some sort of a, you know, like a application that was like, hey, I mean, even like the anagram, I think, so, you know, something of that scope, like, oh, we're going to create, I mean, that might probably come out really short and easy in Spring4D, right? We're going to go have a dictionary of stuff. We just load in from file. You're going to give us some words, some letters, and then there's that. You need permutations, maybe, or try experiment,
yeah.
like random lookups and that sort of thing.
I think I actually
But
wrote
yeah,
something similar to that a while back.
I think people like that. And now that I think about it, and the symposium is in like a month from now, kind of. We could always use a backup talk just in case somebody can't turn up, and yeah. which if it wasn't necessary would then become like the very next WADUG national presentation. Yeah, so something to think about.
Okay.
I mean, I also had bent Peter's ear about the design patterns and real-time simulation stuff from last time, but I think he's got a bigger vision about what he wants to do there, and I don't think it'll be something he does in a month. But anyway, like, I think there's something really good there that people would enjoy and relate to. So
yeah,
no pressure. Obviously, work and family and stuff is the most important thing, right? That's what restricts us from spending 24 hours a day. All right. Is this good night, do you think?
Well, it's good night from me.
Yeah? Well, thank you guys.
Come on, guys. I laid that one up for you.
Oh, and it's good night from him. All right, I'm sorry.
No, it's you know, it's the two Ronnies. Well, it's good night from me.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Can I? The Ronnie says it's good night from him.
Can I pay a tax? 4 candles. How's that?
Yeah, handles to forks.
4 candles. You're having a go, aren't you? You go. I'm not.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Okay, thank you.
Catch you later.
Repose.
Thank
On
you.
repose. Good to see you, Frank.
Yep, see you, mate. Get you.
And Les, cheers.
Thank you, mate. Okay, bye.
Catch you later.
I'm not sure if we had a live Peter Wright in there, but if you're there, Peter, like, thanks for joining. Good night, everybody.
Good night.